The Virgo lunar eclipse on March 3rd, 2026 really should come with a warning label, because this eclipse and the events surrounding it may make you feel like everything is a mess. It may make you feel like nothing is going according to plan. It may make you feel like everything is going wrong. But the truth serum that I want to offer to you within this video is that all of that is an illusion. No matter how discordant, topsy-turvy, and backwards life may feel around this eclipse, it's important to know that in the higher perspective, everything is going in accordance to plan, and that there is a method to the universe's madness, which may differ from our method. Listen, this is a lunar eclipse in Virgo, which likes order and structure and rules and a plan and a method. But this particular eclipse is offering none of that. When we look at the ruler of this eclipse being Mercury, not only retrograde, but in the position of its fall, Pisces, the opposite sign of Virgo. Whereas Virgo likes a plan, Pisces goes with the flow. Where Virgo leans upon ration, Pisces leans on vibes. And so there could be an energy around this particular eclipse around feeling very frazzled, feeling very turned around when things are not going in accordance to plan, being very hard on yourself, being very critical. This is a lunar eclipse on the South Node, so it is quite literally bringing to light what we are not meant to take with us onward on our journey. As you know, if you are a regular here in my cosmic corner of the internet, the cosmos have been popping. As of late, there's been a lot happening, and there's a lot of new timelines that are shifting into place currently, but this particular lunar eclipse is about closing out what we are not taking with us. See, just a couple of weeks ago, we had that brand new cycle of Saturn and Neptune align in Aries. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because Aries is the sign that's around showing up messily. Aries is the sign around just starting it. Virgo is like, no, it needs to be perfect. It needs to be good enough. Whereas the energy of Aries is around just try it. Just follow your instincts. That may give Virgo energy, this particular lunar eclipse, and any of you have Virgo placements, a chill down your spine around just show up. What if it's not perfect? What if it's not according to plan? What if everything does not have its perfect place? What if it doesn't have to? That's really what this particular eclipse asks. It asks how it is that we are holding ourselves back from what the universe is orchestrating and aligning for us in this effort to be perfect, in this effort to have everything dialed in this underlying fear of what it means for you if you have flaws, if you make mistakes. This is a lunar eclipse around metabolizing the knowledge that imperfect action is better than perfect planning. And the more that you are getting caught up in the planning stage, needing things to be perfect, needing things to go in accordance to plan, your plan, the more messy, discordant, and chaotic this particular lunar eclipse in Virgo is going to be. Because with the ruling planet of this eclipse retrograde, it is simply a reality that things are going to go wrong. And the more that we cling around, it was meant to be this way, the less space we have available to surrender and be like, universe, show me your way. Because even with the cosmic chaos of this eclipse, there is an overriding sense of magic within when we release, when we let go, when we stop trying to be perfect and just decide to be. This particular eclipse sextiles Jupiter in Cancer, who is also retrograde. Again, we've got a ruling planet of the eclipse retrograde, and the eclipse itself sextiles a planet that is retrograde. Retrograde energy, yes, can be a little topsy-turvy, can make things feel like they're going wrong, but it's also very inward. It's very introspective. And so this lunar eclipse really asks, where is it that I've been holding myself back from where the universe is wanting to take me? Where is it that I can surrender into my destiny? Where is it that I can loosen my grip on perfection? Because around the time of this eclipse, there could be the most beautiful synchronicities that come into being. Yes, the cafe that you tried to go to may be closed, but if you pivot rather than just standing in front of the cafe doors like, no, this is what I planned. I already looked at the menu and decided what scone I was going to order and what matcha. The more that you bang your fists against the wall of the cafe door, the less energy you have available to just take a walk, look around, and happen upon the most beautiful cafe with somebody there who you have not connected with in some time and to have a lovely chat. Those are the sort of magic moments that the universe is conspiring to align you with. Should you let go? Should you let go around, no, it was meant to be this cafe. I was going to get this lavender scone and this rose matcha, and I will keep banging my hands at the door rather than just say, hey, my plan didn't work. Universe, show me your plan. And there is a release of control that occurs when we do that. We might have dialed in all of the research of the scones and the matcha. Now we have to just trust the menu at the new cafe that we stumble upon. This is a very minute example of what could be showing up within your life in a more big picture way. And so within the course of this video, we will talk about the implications of this Virgo lunar eclipse on March 3rd, 2026. I will guide you in a tutorial around where this lunar eclipse falls within your chart, thus the life arena that it's kicking up within your life. Then I'll guide you through an all signs, houses 1 through 12 forecast of the Virgo eclipse. But before we get into that, I just want to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Haley Comet. I am uniquely qualified to talk to you about this lunation, being that I am a natal Pisces sun, Virgo moon. So this axis is something that I know well. But I talk about all sorts of astrological events here in my cosmic corner of the internet, even if they are not present within my chart. We talk about the eclipses, we talk about the major transits, and I also guide you in a weekly horoscope called Magic Monday, where I talk you through, yes, the astrology of every week, but the magic of every week, should you lean into where the cosmic currents are taking you. So if any of that feels in alignment with you, I would so deeply appreciate your subscription or any other little bit of engagement on this video, liking, commenting, hyping, anything like that. Just know that your engagement is so appreciated. But without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into the Virgo Lunar Eclipse, March 2026, calm in the cosmic chaos. The Virgo Lunar Eclipse lands on March 3rd, 2026 at 3:38 a.m. PST. And this lunation exacts at 12 degrees Virgo, opposite the sun, at 12 degrees Pisces. And this lunar eclipse will align with the south node, which sits at 8 degrees Virgo. So this is a lunar eclipse on the south node. And each of those components of this eclipse carries weight. So let's dissect. Let's analyze, shall we? Very Virgo. The first part of the equation is that this is a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipse is an eclipse on the full moon. And this tends to be timed with more so personal journeys, personal culminations and ahas and epiphanies that we have within our lives. The solar eclipse in Aquarius, like we had a couple weeks ago, tends to be a little bit more collective, a little bit more outside of ourselves. Lunar eclipse tends to be very personal. It's around our journey. It's around our lives. It also tends to be very emotional. Full moon tends to bring a spotlight to what it is that we've been feeling. And what we've been feeling may not make sense. Virgo breaks things apart into the minutia in order to make sense of it. And you may be sitting with certain emotions that do not make sense to you at this point in time, and that is okay. This eclipse is part of an ongoing story that could have had some of its roots that started in September 2024 when we had the lunar eclipse in Pisces that was opening eclipse to this story, and it's still being written. You may be saying, if you are an avid sky watcher, you may be saying, Haley Comet, North Node shifts into Aquarius later on this year. Does this mean that this is the final eclipse in Virgo? No, my loves. One last Virgo lunar eclipse sneaks in for February 2027. So we're in the middle of the story. It's okay for things to not make sense at this particular moment in time. But Virgo energy so desperately wants things to make sense and even wants to understand our own emotions. So the first question I would pose to you with this Virgo lunar eclipse is, where is it that I'm invalidating my emotions because they do not make sense? Because Virgo very much operates in the physical material world. It's an earth sign after all. It goes by what's tangible. It's ruled by Mercury. It's mercurial. It goes by what makes sense. And emotions, what we feel, what we sense, what we pick up on, doesn't always make sense. And the danger in life, but particularly with this eclipse and this overall eclipse story, is invalidating what you are feeling because it does not make sense, because you're breaking apart and analyzing, overthinking around, well, why do I feel this way? Sometimes just you feeling it is enough. is enough. And you know what? Honestly, sometimes when you feel something, you're like, I don't know why I felt so uncomfortable here. I don't know why this made me so sad. Sometimes what we're feeling and what we're invalidating, because it doesn't make sense, it's like, okay, there's no proof, there's nothing tangible or physical. Sometimes we're dismissing our own intuition. Again, this lunar eclipse is answering to Mercury retrograde in Pisces, a very intuitive, albeit confusing influence that we will dive deeper into. But sometimes we invalidate what we feel because it does not make sense, and we push it down and we push it down and we try to analyze it and dissect it. Sometimes you feeling it is enough. And it's not saying that we should then use our emotions as a weapon around, well, you made me feel like this, so I did this to you, or as a shield around, don't come after me, I feel so this. It's not to say that our emotions justify a lot of our experience, like our actions are our own. We have to own that. But it's asking within your own personal journey, where is it that you're invalidating what you feel? And how is it that you can be actually tuning out your intuition by refusing to feel what you're feeling or validate what you're picking up on? Where is it that you don't communicate on your emotions or what's upsetting you out of fear of looking weak or fear of not having a perfect outline, a thesis statement with validating points to back up how you feel? Just you feeling it is enough, even if it does not make sense. And another question I would ask, where is it that I am fearful of being vulnerable? Virgo energy deeply wants to come off as put together and perfect, right? Which no one is, and we know that. But that very reality can feel like an utter failing when it comes to Virgo energy, battling against our own imperfection and battling where it is that we feel weak. You know, Virgo energy can easily tip to hyper independence or hyper responsibility because we don't want anyone to know our little secret that we actually can't do it all. Because then what does that mean about us? If we can't do it all, if we are imperfect, that particular attitude takes a lot from us. It siphons a lot of energy from us. The universe could be trying to bless us and bless our lives. Again, Pisces sun, North Node in Pisces. That's where we're actually being guided to step more into at this time. But we are telling the universe, no, I've got it. I've got it. I don't need any help. I've got it. Silent suffering, while the universe is like, no, if you would only ask for help, we have this amazing individual that you're going to connect with because you're going to hire them. Or if you would only open up, we have this amazing therapist that you can connect with. Or if you open up to your partner, your relationship will deepen. You know, sometimes we suffer on the inside while outside projecting this energy around. It's all good and I've got it and it's all handled. At what cost? At what expense? And I do feel that this eclipse is different than the other eclipses in the story thus far because this is the first eclipse that we will experience in the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo story, where we do not have Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And the reason this is significant, Virgo as a sign, as an archetype, is associated with duty and service and responsibility. And there has been a theme alive around over responsibility or taking things on that are not ours to take on, whether that is physical labor, whether that is emotional labor, whether that is even spiritual labor. Sometimes out of the goodness of our hearts or out of the purest of intentions, we take on what's not ours to carry. The very nature of Pisces energy is to absorb. And so with the Neptune energy absorbing the emotional weight of what other people are carrying, and Saturn energy feeling the heaviness of that. And now with Saturn and Neptune moved into Aries at the time of this eclipse and purified, in a sense, with this fiery energy, there is this cosmic cue at this time for everybody to own your stuff. Like Neptune and Saturn in Pisces could have been the acknowledgement of just how much we've been carrying, taking on that was never ours to take on. And actually, it can put people at a disadvantage when we take on things that are not ours to take on. But it can signal this mistrust around, I don't think that you can do it on your own, so I need to swoop in and handle it. It can signal a lack of trust in that person to figure it out. Aries energy is this all taking on this mindset around everything is figure outable. And when we take something on, because we're like, I just don't know if you can do it, if you can handle it, we are fundamentally communicating a mistrust of that person to learn, even if they're learning messily. You know how infuriating it is sometimes when you're watching someone do something on a computer and you're like, no, you have to hit the button. And you're like watching them and they're being like kind of slow and you're feeling kind of impatient. Everything within you wants to grab the mouse and just do it. Just get to the shortcut of it. But we do learn through doing, especially with this Aries energy, even if it's messy, the doing of it all. And so some of you may acknowledge just how much you've taken on, how many tasks, how many responsibilities that are not yours to take on, or where it is that you are releasing your grip on those responsibilities in order to let other people help you around, I cannot for the life of me, keep my home as clean as I want to. Like I am letting go this pressure of having everything look perfect, and I'm embracing more support from my family unit, from a housekeeper. Yes, I'm admitting defeat around, no, I'm actually not a perfect superhuman who could do it all of the time, but I'm embracing peace within that. Like, where are we fighting ourselves in this name of trying to be perfect or being the one who does it all? The intrinsic reward that comes from being the one who does it all is minimal and not worth it. And you might be saying, Haley Comet, I don't feel like I'm necessarily absorbing the physical labor that is not mine to carry. My question for you, where are you absorbing emotions that are not yours to carry? Let's say you have an awkward encounter with someone at the park and they make you uncomfortable. They say certain comments to you and you don't like it and you awkwardly run away. And then you're sitting with the shame of that awkward encounter where you're like, oh, it's so weird. I should have dealt with that a particular way, like judging yourself and carrying the shame, the awkwardness, the embarrassment from the interaction. That's not yours to carry. You didn't make someone uncomfortable. You didn't cross someone's boundaries. That's not yours. Return that to its proper place. Virgo Lunar Eclipse is around creating some sort of order. That is not yours. Sequester that to its proper place. Return emotions back that are not yours. If you had some sort of romantic situation where you showed up honestly and passionately and you gave it your all and you showed up open-hearted and you were heartbroken, or let's say you fell for someone and you showed up honestly and genuinely and enthusiastically and that person played you, and then you're sitting with all this embarrassment around how deeply you showed up for that person, that embarrassment's not yours. That person should be embarrassed that they played another individual. You were honest, you were genuine, you were you. Like sometimes we take on emotions, take on responsibilities of owning something that's not ours. And sometimes we do that out of this invisible rubric of perfection. Like the energy of Virgo is going to look at every situation, our dating lives, that situation in the park, even the cafe. It's going to compare everything to this invisible rubric around where we're stacking up, around where we're measuring up what we could be doing better. And of course, it's amazing to have a teachable mindset, to have a growth mindset, to look for ways in which we can improve and dial things in. But oftentimes we are our own worst critic. Why are you judging yourself for somebody else who made you feel uncomfortable in the park? Why are you judging yourself for showing up honestly within a love connection? Why are you judging yourself for being laid off at work because the corporation was making budget cuts? Like sometimes we take things on that is not ours. And there is an energy during this lunar eclipse around letting it go, returning responsibilities back to where they're meant to be, and returning emotional labor back to where it's meant to be. Because ultimately, with Saturn and Neptune currently in Aries, everybody has to do their own push-ups. Everybody has to do their own spiritual push-ups with Neptune and Aries. Everybody has to do their own physical push-ups with Saturn and Aries. There are no shortcuts. And sometimes we take away from what someone is able to spiritually learn when we swoop in and try to do it ourselves. Like with North Node Pisces, we have to trust in the perfection of the divine's plan, even if things feel imperfect. And we also have to acknowledge where other people are on their path. It might not be how you would go about your path, but you've got to let people go on their path and make their own mistakes. And this could be challenging if you do find that you are somebody who likes an element of control. You have a tendency to micromanage. Again, that discomfort when we're watching someone do the wrong thing at the computer and we want to jump in and fix it. That's not your place to fix it. People learn by doing. Furthermore, you learn by doing. And so my next question prompt that I would ask you is, where am I holding myself back under the assumption I need to be perfect right away? There are people doing what you want to do who have a fraction of the talent, the work ethic, passion, simply because they believe in themselves. And they do. Like, so much of life is the doing of it. Like Virgo energy, we can get so caught up around getting out our planner and picking the perfect time and having the perfect rollout plan and feeling like everything needs to be dialed in right away. Learn from doing. This is a fast year, this astrology. We've got so much of the cosmos in fire this year, and fire is around action, and fire is an element that moves quickly. And sometimes us calculating the perfect plan, by that point, the moment has passed. Like, we got to be able to keep up, and we're not able to keep up when we feel like everything needs to be perfect. It will be uncomfortable to show up raw and messy, to learn from doing around, hey, I tried this, it didn't work out, let me pivot. The learning is from the doing. It is not from the planning. We don't learn anything from the planning. So some of us are being asked to release this energy of perfectionism around, I'll finally show up when it's perfect. I'll finally show up when I'm perfect. Think about how erosive that is to our own relationship with ourselves around, you can't go in the direction of what you really want to do or follow where passion takes you because you're not good enough, because it's not perfect. Like, that chips us down, constantly telling ourselves and criticizing ourselves where things could be better. Because, you know, this is a Mercury ruled lunation, and something about Mercury is that it is a trickster. And when I think of Mercury in Pisces, I think a lot of illusions. Like I said, there's going to be an illusion during this eclipse that everything is going wrong, that you are a failure, that everything is massively off track. Like, genuinely, to a bigger level, you are held and supported by the universe at large. And it's important to trust that and feel that, even if it doesn't look like that at this particular time. But the other illusion that is showing up is just like the rabbit hole of edits that we can go down around when we look to something in order to improve it, or even look at ourselves. There will be different flaws and mistakes that just pop up. It'll be like Mary Poppins' bag, you know, her bag where she's constantly pulling out different things from it. That's how we can get when we are like analyzing ourselves and looking for flaws and deficiencies. What it is that we seek, we will find. And so when we look at ourselves with a critical eye, or look at our work, or look at our novel, whatever it may be, through a critical eye, yes, it's important to dial things in to make them the best that they can be. But the energy of Virgo wants perfection, which is a bottomless pit. We will constantly be pulling things out of that magic bag and feeling like, okay, I'll finally launch, I'll do the thing, I'll try the thing once I've addressed all of these flaws, deficiencies, once I've gotten all this stuff out of the bag. It's never ending. It's an illusion. And there's such a difference between being your best versus utter perfection. And this is an eclipse, especially with Saturn, Neptune, newly in Aries, around committing to being your best, because perfection is an illusion. And this eclipse is going to get a little Twilight Zone-y. In that, like I said, it's a little topsy-turvy. The ruler of this eclipse is Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Like I said, there could be canceled plans and delays and things going awry, but it's going to be important to look for, what is the gift in this? How can this actually be aligning me? How can this actually be setting me up? Because no matter how random and discordant and backwards things feel from our perspective to a universal divine perspective, everything is working out perfectly, even if it doesn't feel like it at this time. I just have to share an experience that I had yesterday because I feel like it really illuminates the energy I'm speaking of here. Yesterday, we had this plan to go to this particular restaurant, and I cannot even tell you the aversion that settled over me. It was like the plan, and I was like, well, I've got to go to the restaurant. Like, I've got to go to the restaurant. Like, it's a plan. The individual I was going with was having a bad day. So like, I felt this kind of like pressure around, well, I want to cheer them up. So let's go to the restaurant. They'll have fun at the restaurant. But yet inwardly, I just had this aversion to it. I literally just felt my system repel this particular outing. And again, the Virgo part can analyze and dissect around, doesn't make sense. Just like force yourself to go to the restaurant. Like, that's the plan. But everything within me, my emotions, my intuition were just like, don't go. It just doesn't feel right. And I ended up advocating for myself in this. I did not just, push that aside. I was like, I don't know why, but I just am not going to the restaurant. I'm so sorry. We'll spend time when you return from the restaurant. And luckily, this person completely understood, even though they were like, why? And I was like, I don't know. Just feels like a no. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We'll spend time when you return. I'm so sorry. We'll spend time when you return to the restaurant, but I just can't go. And luckily, this person completely understood, even though they were like, why? And I was like, I don't know. just feels like a no. And this individual, when walking to the restaurant, a car pulled over and yelled at them. And it turned out to be a dear friend of theirs that they have not seen in like a couple of years. Just like life got busy and schedules didn't match up. And just so happened to see the person I was going to go to dinner with. And they ended up going and having a great time and catching up. And I was so grateful because I just really needed that night to just be by myself. And then I was like, oh, that's why I had that aversion. Like spirit was orchestrating things, like just the synchronicity of that. And I was both what they needed as well as what I needed. Like North Node in Pisces is really this ask, like trust in the divine plan. So the next question I would pose is, what is the gift in this experience? And you don't need to rush for clarity right now. Like I said, this is an ongoing building story and it may not make sense at this particular moment in time, but seeing if you can find a gift in the situation, even if it's just a story that you can tell or a lesson that you learned. What is one gift in the situation? Where can the universe actually be setting you up in what is transpiring currently? This is a lunar eclipse that does require a little bit of a sense of humor. With it being Mercury ruled and Mercury is retrograde and in its fall, like I said, Mercury is a trickster and sometimes the universe, has a sense of humor with things. And so our work is to strive to see the gift in any situation, even if it doesn't make sense. Why am I feeling repelled to go to this restaurant? Even if it feels like a bad thing. Again, Virgo so wants to organize and categorize things as good or bad. And sometimes it just is. And really with the energy of North Node Pisces, sometimes the universe is orchestrating things in ways that we do not see. Pisces operates a lot in the shadows, in the secrecy, in the mystery, and the spirit of it all. And we don't always see all of what's being aligned currently. So how is it that we can trust and find the gift in what is showing up this time? My next question that I would pose for you is, what am I ready to release? The Virgo Lunar Eclipse, of course, aligns with the South Node, which is around shedding and letting go, but it sextiles Jupiter in Cancer, a planet that is associated with expansion and growth. And so it's a reminder of how much we gain when we release, how much space we open up when we let go. It's like deep cleaning your home. Jupiter's in the sign of home, Cancer. And when you have certain donation bags, sometimes you have that moment where you're like, wait, what if I need that waffle maker? Even though I haven't made a waffle in like 6 years, what if I need it? Sometimes we can have that panic before we let something go. And sometimes that will lead us to accumulate clutter that we don't recognize drains from us. Like everything that we own drains and depletes our energy in some way. And sometimes that feeling, that's fear around, what if I need it one day? Like sometimes that's us living in scarcity around, there will never be another waffle maker if I let this one go. And yet, when you take those bags of what it is that you're donating, when you take it to the Goodwill, like you feel this sense of relief. Your home feels so much more open and invited when there's no clutter within it. And so it could be physical belongings, sure, that's showing up at this time, but it also could be emotional themes that are coming up that it's time to let go of. There's a new journey ahead. And sometimes we are very attached to things that transpire in the past because we overanalyze, what if I would have done this? What if I would have done this? Maybe it would have been different. Maybe I messed up here. That perfectionistic mindset keeps us woven into things from the past. Whereas North Node Pisces is, it was what it was. You showed up at that particular time. And we as humans, we like to feel some element of control of our own experiences. And because of that, when it comes to painful things or things that didn't go according to plan, we sometimes overinflate our role within it around, if I only did this and things would have been different, if I only did this, if I only did this. And it's to feel the sense of control because we don't like having to come to terms with where it is that we failed or where we messed up or what have you. And the energy of North Node Pisces is nudging you and guiding you towards an attitude around, it was what it was. Like you were who you were. There's a method to the universe's madness. There's a method to the universe's magic. Truly, sometimes the magic is in the madness altogether. But we can sometimes overanalyze. If I would have done this, if I would have done this, if I would have done this. If it was meant to be, it would have been. And while that can be a relief sometimes around, I didn't mess it up. I didn't mess up my destiny. I didn't mess up my divinity. It can also be a certain sadness, a certain nostalgia around letting that go. Around when I acknowledge that it didn't work out, that means it's really over. When I acknowledge there's nothing that I could have done, I have to acknowledge that that was not for me. And there's a certain grief that comes from that, but also relief that comes from that, or at least openness to what is coming in that is truly for you. You know, I'm a believer that you really cannot mess up what is 100% for you in this world. And again, eclipses are very fated. So there can be something that comes up where it's like, I tried so hard. I did everything I could to try to make this work, and it still didn't. And you can analyze and hyperfixate around, if only I would have done this, and maybe if I should have done this, or if I just try again. Sometimes it's just like, it wasn't meant to be. And in acknowledging that, it feels uncomfortable, because then it acknowledges, wow, I have less control over this experience than I would maybe want. But there's also a freedom in that, especially in the space that it opens up within our world around just like letting go. It didn't work out, and that's okay. You know, with the full moon on South Node, there is like a letting go energy of what transpires, and it's nothing that you need to force. Like I highlighted, this is a story that is still being written with the current eclipses, but there just could be an acknowledgement around having to let go of a certain plan of how you thought it was going to go, how you wished it would have gone. The energy of North Node Pisces is around, relax, we've got a better plan for you. We've got bigger things for you. You're meant for more than what you could have even concocted within that cute little head of yours. And my last question that I would pose to you all is, what am I learning? And more importantly, how am I learning? You know, it's fascinating that both of the planets that are associated with gaining information are both retrograde currently. Mercury, the ruler of this lunar eclipse, is retrograde, and Jupiter, the planet that this eclipse is making a sextile aspect to, is also retrograde. Mercury is around assembling information, and Jupiter is around assembling wisdom by way of academia and spirituality, what have you. They're both retrograde, which retrograde always turns the lens inward. So you can ask where it is that you receive information from your own intuition, from your own spirit guides, from mysterious sources. Sometimes, which again, Virgo energy doesn't necessarily like mysterious. It likes what's in front of us. Whereas energy of Pisces is around surrendering to the mystery of it all. Surrendering to the mystery around what you feel, around what information your intuition is picking up on. And the reason I wanted to pose this question is that, yes, there can be a contemplation. What am I learning from this experience? You know, maybe I've been doing and forcing and efforting, trying to be perfect. And maybe this particular eclipse is like me reaching an impasse where it's like, maybe I'll just surrender. Maybe I'll try something different. Maybe I'll like go with the flow. Maybe I'll trust the universe when it comes to this. It's acknowledging, what am I learning? And not in a Virgo, let me criticize myself and feel not good enough because it's not working out. It's just acknowledging, like, what am I learning from these failures and from these mistakes that I can take with me? Honoring that it's all part of the process. You know, Pisces energy doesn't go with right and wrong. It goes with it just is. Virgo likes right, wrong, black, white, yes, no. And so there's an energy around, what am I learning from this? You know, why would the universe be orchestrating me to assemble this particular information? What am I learning? But more importantly, how am I learning? Am I taking this information, being so hard on myself, so critical, so judgmental? Or am I just looking at myself as the universe looks at me as a soul with good intentions, with a pure heart, who's trying to do the best that they can do, and who doesn't deserve the cruelty that I inflict on myself? Like, Virgo energy can be very associated with guilt and shame. And like we talked about, sometimes it's not ours to take on. Sometimes we take on the guilt and shame. That's other people's to carry. And we just need to put that back into its proper place. But sometimes we guilt and shame ourselves, eternally battling up against the ways that we are flawed and deficient. Where is it that we can make peace that we are flawed and deficient? Where is it that we can make peace around, hey, I actually can't do it all? Universe, I'm actually open for some support here. Hey, I actually do have emotions. Where is it that I can allow myself to express them, even if it's a little messy? Sometimes. Hey, I'm actually not good at this. Where is it that I can hire out my deficiencies in order to grow and to feel more peace within this experience? Where is it that I can also loosen where I critique others and how I critique others? You know, Virgo energy can be very judgmental. It can be very critical. It can pick things apart. And oftentimes that is an energy that first goes inward. And when we critique everybody on this harsh rubric, we also critique ourselves on that same rubric. But again, Pisces energy, sometimes what we think of as random is the universe getting certain messages to us. For some reason, yesterday I was inspired to take out this piece of art. I'll have Alex insert a picture. It's like a collage I made when I was like 20 and a photo that my bestie took of me. But on this collage, again, randomly took it out of storage yesterday, put it on the wall, not sure why, but like there is a particular statement on this collage that is just like glowing at me. It says, "The quiet beauty of the moment and the company of her own thoughts bring her comfort and a sense of peace." And that was a statement that was cut up from like a Pisces card that I got many years ago. Again, it's a really random collage. But the reason it's sticking out to me is just that surrender into the quiet beauty of the moment, where when we're in any moment, there's so much that we want to fix. There's so much that we want to improve. Like this particular moment in time, when you look around your home, wherever you're home or out on this walk, wherever it is that you are listening to this video, I'm sure there's many things that you could fix. Me recording it, there is a notebook on the ground for some reason. The flowers that are right there are kind of wilted and I probably need to switch those out. Like there's always things that can be improved, but it's not to say this particular moment does not have a beauty to it. And Virgo as a sign, and I can say this because I am a Virgo moon and rising, is not always so peaceful because there's always something to fix and to improve. But this lunar eclipse asks us to relax, surrender, try easy. Yes, there's things to be improved and fixed, but they might not be your job to improve and fix. And there might be a beauty of the moment for you to relax into, for you to receive around. Yes, the flowers are wilted and the notebook is on the ground for some reason, but there's so much beauty in this particular moment. I'm so grateful to be communicating with you currently. I'm so grateful for this random piece of artwork that I dug out of storage. There's so much beauty to be found if we see ourselves as worthy of receiving it and if we relax into the flow of observing it. Each and every one of us have a Virgo lunar eclipse story, but it affects all of our charts differently based on where it's landing, what aspects it's creating to our charts. So while we are all united under the same sky, we all have our own unique experience with this eclipse as well as any other event within astrology. And each eclipse varies in intensity for our lives. Like some people during this eclipse could experience this as like a shrug around, I need to be more gentle on myself, and some of us could have this show up around a massive life change that forces you to release being a workaholic or being a perfectionist or being incredibly harsh on yourself. So I'd love to transition into your Virgo lunar eclipse story. And so this particular eclipse may be more on the side of a life-altering event. If you fall under this category, if you have mutable placements, and by placements, I would define that as Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, or an angle, ascendant IC, descendant midheaven, positioned between 7 to 17. That indicates that this eclipse will be more influential. And mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. If you're in that category and you have placements or angles in that degree, this eclipse may be more major for you. And if you fall in this category, we're in this together because nearly all of my chart falls in this category. So praying for us. We've got this. But even if you're not in that category, you do have a Virgo lunar eclipse, and there are two ways to find your personal reading in the rest of this video. The first is if you are newer to astrology or you utilize whole sign house system, all you'll do is you will look in the description below and advance the timestamp associated with your rising sign, also known as your ascendant sign. That is your reading. That is your Virgo lunar eclipse story. If you use Placidus house system, it's a little bit more tricky to figure out where exactly 12 degrees Virgo lands within your chart, this particular eclipse, but I will demonstrate an on-screen tutorial. So I like the online platform astro.com. Once inputting your birth information, you will get a circle chart that looks like this. The Virgo glyph looks like an M, just with the tail tucked in. I'm circling on screen. And if you go to where Leo ends, that's the red symbol that I'm circling. If you look at the line that divides that Leo symbol from the Virgo glyph, this indicates 0 degrees Virgo. This eclipse lands at 12 degrees Virgo. So these little grid marks indicate increments of 5. So it goes 5 degrees Virgo, 10 degrees Virgo. The next one would be 15 degrees Virgo. So basically between that 10 degree grid mark and the 15 degree grid mark, somewhere around there is where this eclipse is going to land. From there, you will look at the inner ring, the numbers that are listed there, and see where that degree falls, which piece of pizza it's encased within. For example, our amazing inner planet Janet on screen has this Virgo lunar eclipse landed in the 9th house. So that's where inner planet Janet would advance to. If you're not sure, if you're like Haley Comet, it might be the 8th house, it might be the 9th house. In astro.com, there's a button that says PDF, additional tables. To the right-hand side, it lets you know where every house begins, the degree that it begins at. And so from there, you'll be able to decipher if it lands in the next house over the previous house. So now that we have figured out where your personal reading is and where your Virgo lunar eclipse story is, let's take it into our sign by sign, house by house analysis. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the first house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Virgo ascendant. You may just have 12 degrees Virgo within your first house in Placidus house system. But either way, this eclipse for you is about releasing an outdated version of self. Any version of self that has been built as an armor. Because what does armor do? It keeps us safe. And sometimes we build a self under the guise of keeping us safe when it actually keeps us trapped, when it actually holds us back, but we think it's keeping us safe. And so this is an eclipse to ask yourself, where have you been holding yourself back by how you view yourself, by how you portray yourself, by how you show up out in the world? You know, Virgo has a lot to do with work. And so some of you could be releasing this identity at this time of being a workaholic, of seeing yourself as worthy and valuable because of how hard you work and because you're always doing. And this might be an eclipse that asks, as I've been doing, who have I been being? Because sometimes we think we're running towards something. We're like, oh, I'm working hard because I'm building towards this. And maybe some of you are, absolutely. But what I would ask you is, are you running towards that goal or are you running away from your fears? Because sometimes we keep ourselves busy because we don't want to acknowledge something. And sometimes we have a latent fear within us around who we are or who we could be. And so we busy ourselves in an effort to not be that, to create as much distance, to prove ourselves wrong or to prove other people wrong. If there's been something that someone has said to you that you've built a whole life, built a whole armor trying to prove, no, that's not right. And there could be something powerful around a moment of surrender, around not feeling like you need to always be the one to swoop in and fix it all or do it all, or who's always busy, working, doing, fixing everybody else's problems and remaining cool, calm, and collected as you do so. Where is that draining you? Where is that depleting you? Where is that exhausting you so that you have less energy freed up for what you actually want to be doing? For peace, for serenity, for stillness even. There's so much that we lose out on when we feel like we constantly need to be going. North Node in Pisces, the Pisces sun asks us to find the beauty in just being. And some of you might have built an armor or have built a business, built a life where you constantly have to be going. And you might be like, Haley Comet, sounds like a pipe dream for me to take a moment to just stare out into the ocean or look at a tree. But I would acknowledge you to do that. Get connected with self outside of what you do for others or constantly being helpful, constantly being of service. Come back to who it is that you are, not who you feel like you have to be, who it is that you are. And even acknowledge some of your deficiencies. Like I said, sometimes we run like crazy. We build a whole life trying to prove someone wrong or prove something wrong or prove ourselves wrong. And there's so much freedom that comes from disempowering that or facing that. I just want to share, this is where the eclipse lands in for me personally as a Virgo rising. And I faced a fear, or really the fear faced me a couple weeks ago, in that I've built a whole life around this fear of being seen as lazy. I've always seen myself as someone who is an incredibly hard worker, who's always going, doing. And it was out of this fear of being seen as lazy or being seen as someone who had things handed to them, because that's never been the case within my world. And I was so scared of people assuming that of me. And I wove that into my personality, sometimes in very detrimental ways, around almost sometimes feeling like I was in the workaholic Olympics around, oh yeah, I only slept 2 hours last night because I was working all night. Like, girl, you do not get a medal at the end of your life because you pulled all-nighters to finish some sort of work project or to go above and beyond an internship in college. Like, I just felt this fear that people looked at me as someone who was lazy, who didn't have good work ethic, and I felt like I had to overcompensate. And a couple weeks ago, I got a comment on my YouTube channel about being lazy. Someone said, Haley's lazy. And that freed me because I was like, this is what I was afraid of. This is what I was burning myself out, depleting my body, pushing my health to its limit, and jeopardizing my entire sanity was a fear around somebody calling me lazy. Like, sure, I'm lazy, whatever people want to say about me. I don't care anymore. Like, that's what I was fearful of. And it's so powerful when we deconstruct who we felt like we've had to be, as well as we deconstruct how it has not been good for us. You know, maybe your story is different. Maybe you're somebody who's always helping, who's always fixing. And this might be a particular eclipse where it's like, yeah, I'm not the one to go to for that. If you typically have a tendency to jump in, offer advice, and try to fix things for other people, there might be an acknowledgement around, yeah, that's just made me feel resentful and burnt out, and I don't really want to. So I'm just going to say, that's not mine to take on. And I don't need to be the one who can fix it all and help it all. That's something that I've built out of this illusion that if I was needed, I would be loved. You know, sometimes we build these particular identities because we're really wanting to feel seen. We're wanting to feel chosen. We're wanting to feel good enough. If I am working, then I know that I'm valuable. I know that I'm in demand. If people are constantly coming to me for my help and my assistance, it means I'm needed. Even if it makes me feel drained, depleted, exhausted, taken advantage of, at least I'm seen. At least I'm chosen. And this lunar eclipse asks, do I want to be seen like this anymore? Does this feel good for me to be the one who's constantly doing it all, to be the one who's always overworking myself, pushing my body to its absolute limits? Is this a way of framing myself that I'm ready to let go of? Even if there's a humbling moment around it, yeah, I can't fix it all. Yeah, I'm lazy, whatever you want to say about me. It's humbling, and it takes you finding peace with your own inadequacies, your own insecurities, and knowing that when you make peace with them, you stop running from them. You stop feeling like you have to build this elaborate armor in order to protect people from finding out the truth, that you are just a human, that you have flaws, that you have insecurities, that you have inadequacies. When you own it and name it yourself, then nobody can weaponize it against you. And it feels very internal to me when I look at this particular eclipse. A lot of your Virgo risings, your ruling planet is retrograde. So you're really contemplating, where have I perpetrated this and why? Because we can say all day, oh, people take advantage of me, I'm so kind, and people always take advantage of my advice or my help or what have you. And it's not to say that there are not people who do that. You know, givers attract takers. That's the nature of it. But Mercury retrograde in Pisces, likely in your 7th house, asks, yeah, but why? What within me is creating these patterns that I am seeing? And am I ready to disrupt the pattern? What am I really craving from this codependent interaction? What am I really craving from this lack of boundaries with a boss? Like, what am I really trying to get at here? Because that helps us from feeling like we're just on a treadmill in our life. Like, I just feel like some of you have been on a treadmill, like always running and going, and like almost living a life out of fear of acknowledging who you really are, fear of what other people assume. And there just feels to be a moment of surrender or acceptance around, yeah, I'm lazy. Yeah, I'm selfish. Yeah, I'm self-centered. Whatever you say. And it's like disempowering it. And with Mercury retrograde, looking for the truth within you. And some of you, just with Mercury retrograde in your 7th house occurring concurrently with this, you might be thinking back to your romantic past, to past partners, to past business partners, and just reflecting on those experiences and where it is that you felt like you had to overcompensate for those particular individuals, overcompensate for their deficiencies, overcompensate for their inadequacies, almost being like hyper functional, like over functional in this effort of like control or perfection. And sometimes we swoop in and won't let people fail when actually they would learn a lot from failing. And so it's also acknowledging where you're taking things on from your partnerships around your partner has less than admirable qualities, but nobody knows because you're there to swoop in and do PR and do damage control and make sure that nobody says anything bad. I just feel like there's an energy of acceptance and surrender around realizing that's taken so much from me to overcompensate in that way, to over allocate my energy towards others. And maybe I'm getting in the way of their path. Maybe they would learn if they do mess up and try again. Maybe I would learn if I allowed myself to mess up, if I allowed myself to rest. Again, I just keep getting this vision of you being on a treadmill and just acknowledging I'm running so fast, I'm doing so much, but I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. This is an eclipse for stillness. This is an eclipse for reflection, to really acknowledge, am I building what I want because I want to build it? Or is it because I want to be seen in a certain way? Is it because I'm scared of what it means if this doesn't work out? Like, it's getting to the core of it. And it's knowing that, yes, people will assume all that they want. And there's so much power in disempowering that around, okay, you can say that I'm selfish because I'm not swooping in to clean your mess. You can say that I'm lazy because I am no longer depriving myself in the name of keeping everything going. You can say whatever you want. Like with Mercury retrograde in Pisces, I know who I am. And with Mercury retrograde in Pisces, it's also acknowledging I see the spiritual value in my mistakes, in my mishaps, in things that are not ideal, things that are not perfect. And it's worth saying that, yes, I do feel like some of you are kind of auditing current and past relationships, reflecting on certain parts that you contributed to the dynamic that was there. But it's also looking at where it is that you've been overfunctional to your own demise or detriment around saying, no, I don't need help. Like the universe could be really trying to bring fated divine partners into your life with North Node Pisces, or bring expansion within your current relationship if there's an element around allowing yourself to be seen as human, allowing yourself to be seen as flawed, and allowing yourself to receive support or to be vulnerable within said connections. And it's important to know that soulmates come into our life in many different forms. And so even outside of romantic partnerships, there can be people coming into your orbit because you're acknowledging, I'm only human. I can only do so much. And that opens up the space within my life for fated partners and collaborators. This lunar eclipse sextiles Jupiter, which is most likely in your 11th house, which is around, soul family and friendships and audience. And there's so much power when we just show up imperfectly, and it allows us to actually deepen our bonds with others. I feel like a lot of you are deconstructing how you felt like you had to be perfect in order to be loved and chosen, but it actually can dissuade closeness if we feel like we have to have this perfect veneer, because people can't relate to perfection. Sometimes when you just show up as you are more of a magnet to genuine connections, because perfection is not genuine. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the second house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Leo ascendant. You may just have 12 degrees Virgo located within the second house. But either way, you are deconstructing and releasing outdated stories around money, and furthermore around your own worthiness. Some of you have been incredibly hard on yourself because of your financial reality. Maybe you made a mistake in money and you've been beating yourself up about it. Maybe you feel like your wages have stagnated and you're taking it personally. Maybe you feel like you lost out on an opportunity to invest. There's just an energy where you could be beating yourself up around finances or around your financial reality. And this lunar eclipse says no more. No more, especially if you've been weaving in your own value to your financial reality. Sometimes we get dangerous messaging around finances woven into our own mentality. It's worth to contemplate what money symbolizes to you beyond it. Yes, this is a practical, tangible sign, Virgo, in a very practical, tangible house, second house of money and possessions. You might be like, Haley Comet, what does it matter if what money symbolizes? But Mercury retrograde in Pisces asks you to take a deep dive. Take a deep dive into what has money represented. Maybe you had a partner who used money as a tool around, you have to do what I say because I pay the bills around here. Maybe you grew up with parents who fought over money. Maybe you grew up with a caretaker who prioritized work above you. Sometimes we get certain stories woven around finances that can sometimes hold us back and keep us in scarcity loops or being very critical of ourselves. And it's just also important to know, just with North Node Pisces, acknowledging the bigger picture of things around things that we internalize or feel like it's our fault, oftentimes are societal failings and corrupt systems that were designed to bankrupt us or ensnare us or what have you. Like, it's important not to be so hard on yourself is what I want to say firstly, as well as to really acknowledge, where is it that I felt like money will fix everything? Where is it that I felt like I need to burn myself out, push myself to the absolute brink of exhaustion in order to make money? Where is it that I felt like I need to be of service as it relates to work, as it relates to my career, even to my own device? Where is it that I feel like my value is tied up in how much I give? Virgo energy is very helpful. It's very service oriented. But I do feel that a lot of you are recognizing that you can only do so much. And you might be attracting certain clients at this time who want you to do it for them. Everybody has to do it for themselves. Everybody has to do their own push-ups, so to speak. And so you might be shifting, if you're self-employed or something like this, around, no, I'll give you the code so that you could do it yourself. I'm not going to do it all for you. Sometimes people want you to take on the brunt rather than you kind of hand-holding someone and guiding them towards finding their own path, finding their own way. And I feel like some of you are just acknowledging no more. Like, me playing into that is keeping me in a codependent loop. Or maybe it's even showing up if you're not self-employed. Maybe you even have a boss who you feel very tethered to, that you have to constantly be doing, but you justify it around, well, it's money. I'm getting paid in money, so it's okay what I'm putting up with. We've been rewatching Mad Men, this show, and there's this line where this character, Peggy, is asking where her thank you is for her work, and Don Draper is like, that's what the money is for. Sometimes, especially in this society, we use money to qualify or justify sometimes abhorrent behavior. And again, we all need money in order to get by, but some of you might be in a realization at this time around, it's not worth it to have this client who's blowing up my phone at all hours of the night. My peace is worth more. It's not worth it to do all of these sessions with individuals who want me to do all of their work for them. Then I'm stuck with it and it feels so heavy. It's not worth it. Not all money is good money. Some of you could be in that recognition of that and just the heaviness of it. Some of you, I have to be so forthright, sometimes lunar eclipses in the second house are timed with some sort of income stream loss. But my encouragement would be, how can this actually be a good thing? How can this actually be setting me up? It keeps coming up in my mind's eye. So I just want to share here that I once had a job where I was very well paid, but I was basically an executive's personal assistant, and there were no boundaries in terms of when they could reach out to me. And this person had anger problems, so they would just call me at all hours of the night and just unload on me all of their stuff and all of their frustration. And I was pretty good at soothing them and calming them, but it came to a point where I'm like, the money is not worth it. I mean, my whole system was stressed and fried, and there was a lot of anxiety releasing that job because I was like, where's the money gonna come in? But my peace mattered more. My sanity mattered more. We all need money to get by in this world, but your mental health is everything. That's what keeps you on this planet. And there's no point to money if you're not on this plane. You gotta do what you need to do in order to keep your vessel here. And sometimes that's walk away from financial situations that are not serving you, that are leading to more stress, that are leading to more anxiety. If you are self-employed, like I said, there could just be a frustration around how much you're having to take on. Your clients want you to do that for them because they are paying you, or your coworkers expect you to swoop in and do it all. And again, with second house being the house of self-worth, even if this doesn't show up money-wise, you could find a lot of your worthiness within your work ethic with how much you do. North Node and Pisces coming back to the truth of your soul, the beauty of your soul, the divinity of your soul, and knowing that that can't be quantified. You can't put that into your bank account. And so I would really trust what's transpiring here. Certainly it can be disruptive if something shakes up financially, but you're being guided to trust the bigger picture at this time, to be open to unexpected ways of receiving with North Node in Pisces and Mercury retrograde in your 8th house. A lot of you are in a massive preparation period, really in the first part of 2026. For a lot of you, you have Jupiter in the 12th house. And Jupiter in the 12th house is a lot around releasing and preparing for Jupiter to cross over into the 1st house, which is around gain and growth and expansion. And you can't expand unless you have room for it. You can't create unless you have room to create. So your guidance at this time is to really look at everything and notice what space it's opening up within your world. And maybe that's requiring a level of trust around, I'm just going to trust that the releasing of this freelance client is setting me up for a client who's going to be a dream client, who's going to pay 10 times more and going to be answered all my prayers. And if I would have had this client, I wouldn't have had the space to even seek out this other client. Like, you have to trust the bigger cycles, especially with the houses that are being lit up with this lunar eclipse. I also feel 2nd house does deal with possession. So some of you could be not feeling as materialistic. You could be letting go of certain things in this name of order. You know, they say that cleanliness is next to godliness, and more stuff does not equal more better. You know, clutter disrupts the mind. It distracts our focus. And you might be in this energy of closing and clearing out, like I said, with Jupiter in the 12th house, and asking, what's not coming with me? What's taking my time, my energy? What's taking up real estate within my home? What's taking up real estate within my soul? What's taking real estate within my energy? What's taking up real estate within my closet? How can I feel the freedom that comes from the release? That is what I would ask you with this Virgo lunar eclipse. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the 3rd house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Cancer ascendant. You may just have 12 degrees Virgo located within the 3rd house. Either way, this eclipse for you is a surrender of an entire mindset, but particularly a mindset of what does not serve you. A perfectionistic mindset, a critical mindset, a mind that hyperfixates on your worst qualities and blows it up. A mind that thinks that any deviation from the plan around how things were meant to go is a failure. The mind that categorizes things into good or bad, right and wrong, and oftentimes puts you in the bad category of that. Yeah, no more. Because you have and have had North Node in Pisces in the 9th house, which is all around growth, all around opening up to higher wisdom, broader perspectives. And when you operate through life through a Virgo perspective, you inhibit growth. You inhibit exploration, because 9th house, where North Node is for you, is around travel. I'm not saying you're literally traveling, but think about how many things go awry when you are traveling. And that's just part of it. And you've got to learn how to pivot. You have to learn how to roll with the punches, especially when you are traveling to a new land or opening yourself up to new experiences. If you view it through this Virgo perspective and get so attached around, we were meant to have breakfast at this time before this plane delay, you gotta just roll with it. You gotta go with the flow. That's what the Pisces energy is nudging you towards. And this can be an energy of letting go of a certain mental patterning that keeps you from growing around, I want to take this course, but what if I look dumb? I want to publish this book, but what if I'm judged? You know, these things get in the way of growth and exploration. And it's important to know you do not have to consent to certain thoughts that exist within your mind. Like, you can say, I don't consent to this. Like, to a personal level, this has been something that's come in the last week. I've realized that I don't have to feel embarrassed or have certain mental loops around, oh my God, that was so awkward that you did this and that at this social outing, or people probably think this or this about you. I've realized I don't need to let those sort of thoughts in my head. Like, my head is my own, my mind is my own. Again, this lunar eclipse is separated from Saturn, Neptune, now in Aries, who recently conjoined a couple weeks back. But I'd like to pull that into the current sky, because this is the first eclipse in the Pisces Virgo story that doesn't have Saturn and Neptune co-present in Pisces. So there is kind of a freshness around this particular eclipse. And I mention this because the energy of Aries is around being authentic as well as being rooted in our own experience. And sometimes we get in this very critical mindset around, what do people think about this? Or what would people think about this? How would people gossip about me for this and this? And it's important to just be so anchored in your own experiences and to release being held back because of fear of what other people will say, because they'll say whatever it is that they want to say. You have Saturn and Neptune in the 10th house currently. So a lot of you are stepping into something new that is public, and you may feel embarrassed around certain missteps being publicized, or just certain things that you didn't know about, or certain messy first tries or trial or error. It's important at this time to be unwavering as it relates to your own belief in yourself and unbothered by thoughts from other people. Gossip, is third house energy. And so this may be a time of detaching consciously from what people have to say about you, or even I'm getting for some of you waiting for someone to say something particular. You might be working on something, waiting for certain validation from someone within your life. Maybe it's a sibling with third house energy, extended family member, third house energy, neighbor, third house energy, or like some sort of mutual on social media. Really, the person doesn't matter, but the core theme through line could be waiting for validation, someone to say that you're good enough, or maybe even having that final blow of someone saying, oh, you could do this, that makes you recognize, oh, it's never going to be enough for you, is it? So I'm going to stop waiting for it. Saturn and Neptune now in Aries does ask us to be impatient with our own desires, to go after what it is that we want, and be centered in our own experience. If you feel like you're doing something for validation from others, to hear those words that you want to say from this person, this lunar eclipse could be the time of letting that go, of realizing it's never going to be enough for you. You're always going to critique, or you're never going to say what I really need you to say. And so I release myself from the shackles of waiting for that, or wanting that even. It's natural, of course, to want to feel validated and praised for what we do, but you are in this energy where you are validating and praising yourself. You are building something out of belief in yourself. You are initiating a new, essentially, cycle, following your own instincts and chiseling your own course. And for some of you, like I said, it could be messy and have some fumbles. If you're not fumbling, you're not growing, you're not trying. And so this is an eclipse around letting go of the mindset that needs it to be perfect, or that is holding yourself back out of fear of what people would say if you did show up. Like I said, I had that light bulb moment around no longer consenting to feeling embarrassed. Because I think with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, what's more embarrassing is to not try, is to not put yourself out there, to not be earnest and honest and authentic with who it is that you are. That's embarrassing. And so you don't need to be embarrassed around what people are going to say, or it's so embarrassing that I tried this and it didn't work out. Those do not have to be thoughts that exist within your brain. Perhaps this is a time around letting that go. This could be timed with finishing off a certain course. Third house can have to deal with this. Maybe you finish off a certain project. Maybe there is an element of releasing social media. You could be deleting the apps from your phone, particularly if you feel like it leads you to doubt your own fate or doubt your own destiny. And to be clear what I mean by this, oftentimes when we see what other people are doing, how other people are living on the gram or what have you, everything looks more glamorous. And sometimes it can create doubt on our experiences, where we see someone traveling the world and we're like, should I be doing that? Or we see someone starting a family and we're like, should I be doing that? And for some of you, it might be the healthiest thing for your mind state to take a step out of it. Again, you get to choose what you feed your mind. You get to choose what sort of thoughts you allow within your brain. Like, there is an element of personal agency with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And even just recognizing whether it's social media or other media, things that you feed your brain, recognize where that is leading to your own demise, or leading to more negative thought forms, or leading to viewing your life and yourself more negatively or more critically. Like, you can say no more at any point in time. You can note the data around, gosh, I was feeling really good about myself, and then I logged onto social media and now I feel like crap about all of my decisions. Note that data and move accordingly. You can shut down any channel of communication that you want to at any moment in time. And that leads me to feel like maybe some of you are setting some sort of limit on a social media, but also how other people can contact you. Maybe a expectation that you put on yourself that you need to be always responsive, always available. With North Node in Pisces, the Sun in Pisces, we need space to dream and imagine and envision, which is not available when we're constantly replying and texting and reaching out and all of these things. So maybe this is you deciding, no more, I won't be as accessible. I'm putting my phone on do not disturb. If you're not like blocking someone, like some of you could be doing that. And it's important to know that the ruler of this eclipse is in your 9th house. And so some of you could even be looking at religious programming, how that has impacted your own mental state in some sort of way, or even certain words lessons that you have learned from gurus, from mentors, even from astrology. It's so important what words we give power to. And that's why I think when we dive into astrology, when we dive into any spiritual art, really, we have to be so mindful with how things are framed, because people can hold on to certain statements, certain phrases, and weave it into their own personal history, into their own personal ethos, into their own personal hero's journey, even if it's not very helpful. Like, for example, let's say you read something about your birth chart that makes you feel like you're going to be constantly doomed, and that keeps you in a state of mind around looking for more proof of that. This could be a time to like revisit the text that made you feel that, or re-listen to the recording if that was said, in order to see if there's a different perception. And you're allowed to negate things, is what I want to say. Like, I don't think that there's anything that anyone can say out there when it comes to an art of interpretation like astrology, or when it comes to a faith-based system like religion. There's nothing that we can say with 100% truth and certainty. Like, of course, a skilled astrologer will put together the nuances of your chart in order to give you a delineation. But if you received certain guidance from, I don't know, an astrologer or some sort of spiritual reading, some sort of tarot reading or something like that, that led to more anxiety or doom, that tells you something. Like, when truth comes in, especially something that aligns with our soul and aligns with our journey, you feel it in your body, especially with this Virgo energy, you feel it. And if it's not from source, a lot of times it could be timed with anxiety. It's not to say that there's not negative messages that will come out or things that are more challenging to work on, but there's a difference between, ooh, that hurts and I see myself in that, but I'm empowered on how to move through it, versus I feel doom and despair. You know, it's really important what sort of thoughts that we water within our brain and what we give life force energy to. And I just see some of you are having a hard time because it's like something that was told to you through an environment that was very truth oriented. So like something like a church, something like a college institution, something like an astrology reading, like I said, that's kind of like ricocheting through your mind. And this might be an eclipse around recognizing, just because that was that priest's take, that professor's take, that astrologer's take, that tarot reader's take, doesn't mean that that needs to be my truth. I can take the bits that related to me, I can leave the rest, whatever may be showing up for you here. But all in all, this feels like a surrendering of the mind that has gotten you here, because the mind that has gotten you here will not be the soul that gets you there. And with North Node in Pisces in the 9th house, the soul to get you there is what's guiding and leading you at this time. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the 4th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Gemini ascendant. You may just have 12 degrees Virgo located within the 4th house. But either way, this is a more significant eclipse for you. My loves, this does land in an angular house, which does emphasize and accentuate its significance within your chart and thus within your life. So let's get into it. This lunar eclipse is hitting a point of your chart that's very private. It's very personal. It's about you at home. It's about your roots. It's around your ancestry. It's around your lineage. It's information that is not accessible or available to other individuals when they perceive you. And this feels relevant to mention because the entire chart is really built upon the foundation of the 4th house. Like, the 4th house really tells the story of everything that needed to come to be, every person who had to connect with person, every place that your ancestors went to. Like, 4th house tells the story of that, how you came to be. And that's sacred, right? That's a sacred part of your own soul, but it is something that is a little bit more private. And so I want to start there by saying that people may not see how critical you are of yourself, how much you overthink everything. You know, a lot of you are Gemini rising, so you've got a lot of thoughts in the brain. And this is a fellow Mercury ruled sign, and it's at this very sacred territory of your chart. And so people may not see how hard you are on yourself. They may not see how even neurotic you can be or how anxious you can be. And some of this might be innate. Some of this might have been learned. Perhaps you grew up with certain caregivers that were very critical of you, or who worried a lot themselves, or who were hypochondriacs, or who had health issues that plagued you with this feeling of fear within that made you feel like constantly nervous. I just feel like some of you could have grown up in an environment where you felt like you were walking on eggshells. Some of you could have grown up in an environment where you felt like you had to be perfect. You know, people could see you as someone who is a high achiever, who's always doing this and that. But what people don't see beneath the surface is how that is a tendency of yours that has been learned because you were afraid of the consequences if you did not succeed, if you did not stack up. And that's private, that's personal, that's what people do not see of you. And so this eclipse could be you releasing certain elements around your inner emotional ethos, around you being told certain things are good, being told certain things are bad from your family members, and committing to a journey around you finding out for yourself. There could also be an energy around letting go of analysis of your own emotions, or even just feeling like everything that you do is judged and condemned as either right or wrong within the eyes of your parents or within the eyes of your family. This does bring in a lot of family themes, and I'm not at all suggesting that something will happen with your family. There just could be an awareness of where it is that you're holding yourself back, or holding yourself back from following your own North Star, your own inner guidance, this North Node in Pisces energy, out of fear of what your family will think, and fear of living a life that they don't agree with and don't approve of, which is super challenging. Again, this is a very layered house. Like sometimes our caregivers are that way because of pressure that was put on them, and it goes back and back and back. Sometimes they give us certain advice because they don't want us to make the mistakes that they did, but it's loaded, it's heavy. And this eclipse is significant because it is the first of this eclipse cycle that we will not have Neptune and Saturn co-present in Pisces. So there is like a freshness in this particular eclipse, even though it's an ongoing story. And there's a little bit of a decaf nature with this eclipse, because now we have Saturn and Neptune in Aries, which is most likely in your 11th house. So you are like charting your own course. You are fulfilling your own hopes and dreams. You are wanting to make things happen and live on your own terms. And so you might recognize these themes while not being beholden to them. You might have a certain family member where you're like, yeah, and I'm this and I'm that. What else? What else do you want to say? You don't define me. I define me. And it's not to say it's always so easy, because again, these relationships could be very heavy and very layered and very hard to navigate with any sort of energy of feeling disapproval. But it's really important to realize that this is your life. So long as you are living in integrity with yourself, living in accordance to your own morals and not hurting anyone and living up to your own potential, you can't do life wrong. And I think a lot of you grew up in an environment where you were made to feel like there is a right and wrong way to do life, and you more often than not tilted on the wrong side. And this eclipse could kind of bring things up to a point where you just recognize, like, I'm trying to get validation from individuals who are not ever going to give me validation or give me approval. And, around this eclipse, the ruler of this eclipse, Mercury, is retrograde in your 10th house. So this could be timed with some sort of career reflection. There could be certain delays or certain difficulties around career, having to go back in order to finish something. You also could be thinking back through different career goals and heights, and realizing that certain things that you thought were going to earn validation didn't. Or maybe your family did say, good job, you succeeded this, you achieved this, but it didn't feel as rewarding as you thought it was going to be. Like there just could be an element around, I've got to build this for myself, and furthermore for my soul, really, with North Node in Pisces. Now, some of you could be clearing out house, literally like Virgo, 4th house energy. Some of you could be downsizing. You could be releasing things. You could be tackling certain maintenance projects. There could be something that comes up around this time that makes it clear where certain maintenance work around land, around property is necessary. Some of you could sell a property or just get awareness that this is no longer where you want to live, that you want to sell your home, that you want to move, something like this. And for some of you, that might be a little emotional. This might have not been part of the plan. It's like, no, I was meant to retire here. No, this was meant to be my forever home. No, this family member was meant to live here for so much longer than they actually did. Like there could be an energy around this is not according to plan. But what's going to be important underneath the mind saying, it's not according to plan, this is not how it should be, there is a soft hum from the soul saying all is transpiring as it's meant to. And it's not to say some of those culminations and realizations and releases are not emotional. Like this is a lunar eclipse in the 4th house, but this life is a continual process of the receiving and the grieving. And so there could just be an energy around allowing yourself to let go, whether it's a property, let go of certain emotions, let go of certain validation or approval that you've been waiting for from family members, and trust that the moon will do what the moon will do, and that's renew itself, and so will you. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the 5th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Taurus rising. You may just have 12 degrees Virgo located within the 5th house. But either way, this lunar eclipse is an energy of letting go of perfectionism around your creative projects. You know, a lot of you are very particular about what you create, around how you create, with Virgo in your 5th house. And this particular eclipse could make you recognize how much that has been holding you back. Like with North Node Pisces in 11th house, seeing other people get what it is that you desire because they're showing up imperfectly, and recognizing how it is that you've been delaying and blocking your own blessings under the skies of it needing to be perfect and having everything dialed in. You know, showing up is so key right now. Even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, even if there's certain edits or revisions that need to be done down the line, showing up is key. Grabbing the moment is key. Answering muse and instinct is key right now. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is that this is the first eclipses that we will have in the ongoing North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo story that does not have Saturn and Neptune also in Pisces. And why this is exciting for you is because this indicates that finally North Node Pisces can just thrive in your 11th house without being co-present with Saturn and Neptune. It could do its thing. Because ultimately, North Node in the 11th house is a time of dreams coming true. It's a time of expanding reach, expanding audience. It's a time of gaining influence. It's a time of making friends. It's a time around having certain things come into reality that you were made for. You know, with North Node Pisces, you were made for this. And Pisces operates on flow. And sometimes when you start to edit yourself mid-flow, you edit source energy that's flowing through you, particularly as it relates to your own creation. And I know this for me all of the time. When I'm channeling, when I am relaying a certain message, the moment I get in my own head and I'm like, did that sound weird? Is there a better word to say there? Is that odd? The moment that I start editing and revising, it's like I lose track of just what was flowing through. There is a time and place for editing. There is a certain time for revising. Honestly, Mercury retrograde occurring right now is actually a beneficial time for it, but not when it's flowing and going. And I see for some of you, it's like not even allowing yourself to create because it's not perfect, because it doesn't have a perfect plan around how it's going to be rolled out. Imperfect doing is better than perfect planning. And I just feel like some of you are releasing that. You even could release the shame around showing up imperfectly. It takes time to build things. It takes time to cultivate success. And ultimately, your soul is what pulls you through because you feel connected to something bigger than yourself. But I see with the energy of the lunar eclipse in Virgo in the 5th house, a lot of you, your mind is being very loud, chattering, writing a poem, and something within your mind says that's not good enough. Or going to film a YouTube video and something in your mind says, well, you can't do it now because you don't have the next couple of YouTube videos lined up. There's an annoying little voice in your head that could be hindering your creative expression. I'd encourage you to name it, to disempower it around, okay, Sharon, like, stop. This is not time for editing. It's time for creating and answering the flow. Because if we genuinely feel like we are tapping into something, if we feel like we are chiseling and channeling some sort of artwork, some sort of creation, some sort of foundation with North Node in the 11th house for you, whatever it is that you are creating, if we genuinely feel like we are tapped into something bigger than ourselves, who are we to doubt ourselves as the conduit? Like, it's not just us. We are merely the paintbrush that is creating the artwork. To a certain extent, we are not necessarily the creator. I know I sound a little out there, but if you experience that kind of divine feeling when you are creating, you know what I'm talking about. And oftentimes when we start to hyperfixate on ourselves as a paintbrush, how will this be received? What will this mean? What will be the next thing? That's when we can lose our stride around just the bliss of creation in and of itself. And so I feel that some of you are releasing this energy that it needs to be perfect. Some of you could be shrugging around, okay, I put something up, it didn't receive a great response. That's fine, I'll get them next time. You know, learning from the particular experience, especially if you feel like you've been in analysis paralysis. That's really who I'm speaking to. Individuals who have 12 drafts and 13 drafts and you're not putting it out there and you're not putting it out there. You're blocking the universe trying to give your aligned audience to you with North Node 11th house. Like, this is a time to be building audiences. This is a time to be networking. This is a time to be putting yourself out there. And if you are not a creative, if you are not working on some sort of creative project, this could also just be like in terms of expanding your reach amongst colleagues or even putting things out there on LinkedIn or building a social media following. You know, we create in so many arenas of our life outside of just literal creative means. And so there can be an element around judging yourself. If you go to social interactions thinking, God, that was so weird that I said A, B, and C, and keeping you from going to other business networking events or going to other happy hours or other astrology clubs or whatever it is, being so in your own mind, hyperfixating on everything that you did. No one is thinking about you as much as you are thinking about you. And that's getting in the way of you broadening your reach and putting yourself out there and being seen. Some of you may be releasing some sort of plan as it relates to your children. You maybe wanted to stop breastfeeding at a certain time and it just didn't go according to plan, or you wanted to stop sleeping in the same room as your newborn at a certain point in time and that didn't go according to plan. Like, in raising children, there's so many things that just don't go according to plan. And there might be an energy of releasing that or releasing attachment to their grades, age dependent, or releasing attachment to wanting to control or nitpick their particular choices, like knowing that that's their work, that's their path, which is of course easier said than done, but that may be something that you are in this release of currently. If you do not have children, but you want to have them, this could be releasing the timeline that you wanted that to take place, or even the methods or the means. You might have had a certain attachment around wanting to do it a certain way, and North Node Pisces asking us, okay, that was my way, universe, what's your way? And feeling the surrender of that. Some of you could be releasing of a plan to have children. Maybe you're like, I look out at society, I look out at my hopes and dreams, and it doesn't seem feasible for me. And so I'm releasing that, that was something that I wanted at a different period of time. And I have to trust what feels right now and what feels aligned for the future that I am in co-creation with North Node Pisces. And fifth house also brings about inner child themes. And so even if you're not striving to pursue some sort of creative field, this could be letting go of any sort of feeling that you need to be good at something in order to do it, or that it needs to be productive in order to do it. Life is your work of art. We decorate it every single day. I am of the belief that, especially now more than ever, creativity is so key. And it's beyond even just creating. It's keeping your joy alive in whichever way that makes sense for you. With North Node Pisces in the 11th house, a lot of you could be very plugged into people, very plugged into society. And what's important to know about the nodes that I feel is not discussed enough is that nodes are a balancing act. Like, a lot of times I think a North Node around, we have to go fully towards the North Node and abandon the South Node, whether it's natal or transit. And I'm not of the belief of that. I think it is a balancing act. Like within our charts, South Node is where it is that we come from. So a lot of times it's certain talents and abilities that we do have chiseled from past lifetimes, but North Node is where we're going. We can't abandon where we've been in order to just go to where we're going. Like even in the hero's journey, there is a return back to home at some point in time. Like we balance it, right? We balance our natural comfort zone with what it is that we're meant to chisel in this lifetime. Same goes with nodes when they're transiting. So yes, with the energy of South Node 5th house, a lot of you could be releasing some sort of hobby. You could be releasing partying, something like this that is no longer aligning for you. But I do feel like it's a balance around being plugged into society to see, okay, this is what needs changing, or this is the difference that I want to make, or this is the dreams that I have for humanity at large. Balancing that with also retaining your own joy so that you're able to give to other individuals could be key at this time. If the Virgo lunar eclipse on 3/3 lands within the 6th house, this message is for you. A lot of you are Aries risings. A lot of you just have 12 degrees Virgo within the 6th house. But all of you are releasing not just a routine, but a way of being. You know, when we talk about 6th house, so much of our life is tied into 6th house. Like so much of our life comes down to the minutes and the hours and the seconds of what we spend day to day. Yes, life has its big moments, its grand moments, but so much of life is your morning routine. So much of life is meetings at work. So much of life is time at the gym. So much of life is taking a little spot to the vet. So much of life is these minute parts of life. And so the ask with this lunar eclipse in Virgo is to participate within these minute portions of life without being consumed by them. 6th house is very associated with maintenance. It's very associated with health. It's like where things can go wrong. And at any moment in time, there are so many things that can go wrong as it relates to our health, as it relates to our jobs, as it relates to our animals. And I don't say that to scare you. I actually say that to free you. Because if we decide to be consumed by it, and particularly fear of the anxiety looming around something could happen, something bad could happen, like that is going to be an existing constant within our lives. And especially now, we have to choose how we show up. And especially you, if you are at Aries rising, having Saturn and Neptune co-present in your sign, this is a time to remain in your power and to be very empowered around what you give energy to day to day. And so if you've been living with a lot of like health fear that doesn't really feel like it has any discernible source, it's just this fear around something could happen or fear around something happening to your animal, something happening to your job, this is just a choice point around to choose whether you are going to show up with courage or to show up with fear. Because if you choose to show up with fear, there will always be something that you could be fearful of. There will be 20 things that you could freak out and panic about. And I'm not saying those are coming to a pass at this eclipse. I'm just saying there could just be an energy around, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be something that I could be doing, something that I should not be doing. And it's not around giving up. In fact, Saturn and Neptune in Aries does ask us to take charge of our own destiny and chart our own course. But if you feel like a very perfectionistic, critical, or worried energy has been keeping you from life, this could be a time around letting it go. Around if I choose to live life with fear, I'll always find more to be fearful about. I know there will be issues. I know there will be problems, but I also trust that I'll be able to handle those things. Everything is figure outable. You can figure out anything. You are capable, you are competent, and it's so important at this time to take things one step at a time. If you are frozen in fear, not wanting to go to the doctor because you're so scared of what they're going to say, or not wanting to get a certain procedure done, or not wanting to take your dog to the vet because you're so scared what they're going to say, like living in fear, this is the time to choose. I'm living with courage. I'm not allowing this anxiety to take over me. I'm choosing to show up for my day-to-day routine. I own the sixth house. The sixth house does not own me. There could be a choice point of that at this particular moment. A lot of you could be releasing certain habits. Some of you could even be releasing certain attachment around your work. If you do have any workaholic tendencies, this could be a time that you are releasing that. You're recognizing the weight that it puts on you. With Saturn and Aries now, you could just recognize, I only have so much energy to go around. So I can't be going above and beyond for my coworker, Cheryl. I can't be staying over in order to make sure that A, B, and C never occurs. Like I have a limited amount of energy to give to a limited amount of things in my life. Maybe I'm realizing where my perfectionism is being a drain on my day to day. And again, this eclipse, it's so important not to live in fear, but some of you may have something transpire at work around a coworker, something like this. Some of you may have lost one of your positions or something like this, or at the very least experiencing some sort of shift within routine. And of course, it could be so destabilizing when something changes and it could bring up so many fears, but that's where it's really important how we show up and to move into this next season of life with courage and confidence. What would it look like to see this as a blessing in disguise, even if the blessing feels real disguised? Right now, real disguise, like your workplace could be shifting to this new software system and you're like, where does this leave me? Am I becoming redundant? And of course, there's fear and trepidation in that. Or you can choose to empower different strengths around, maybe this will allow me to lean more into my creativity because now the software is doing this for me. Like it's so important how you frame what is transpiring here and to not lead with fear. And that goes with health. Like I said, with the energy of sixth house, I am not at all implying that something may happen with your health. There just could be an element around either choosing to release any fear around securing certain health results or an energy around realizing something has got to change as it relates to your health, as it relates to your habits. And all in all, North Node is in your 12th house. And so there is a call and a desire for solitude. And so some of you may be releasing things from your day-to-day in order to claim more space in your own energy. Some of you may even be releasing an outdated mindset that sees your value tied up into how much you do, like seeing who you are as how much you do. And again, Saturn, you feel the weight of that, especially if you've been in a pattern where at the end of each day, you judge the quality of your day around how much did I get done. It's important to release yourself from the shackles of that because at the end of this experience, we don't get a medal because we made sure to do the dishes every single night. Like, it's really recognizing, how is it that I'm judging my life? Like, am I judging it in terms of how I feel day to day, who I connect with day to day, what I love day to day, or just what I do? And some of you may just be feeling like what you do is kind of meaningless at this time. Like, your job could feel just like you're going through the motions. And maybe there is a change that's taking place there because you're just recognizing, like, I want to be connected to something that's so much bigger. And this just feels so menial. And this just feels so mundane. Could be something that some of you are navigating. And again, you know, sometimes we just need to compartmentalize things, and sometimes we have a certain job because that's just what we need in order to have space to go on spiritual retreats or develop our intuition or whatever you're getting into. With North Node in the 12th house, like, sometimes we have to compartmentalize around, yeah, it's what I do. It's not who I am. And like, making that distinguishing factor. Some of you could recognize how a current job is just not good for your health or for your mental health or emotional health. Something like this could be a contemplation. This does govern people that we hire, people that we employ. So there may be an energy where you decide to terminate a certain contract or part ways with someone that you have worked with for some time. There could be something coming to light there, or with a coworker as well. Not that you would terminate a contract for a coworker, but there just may be something around realizing it'll never be good enough for you. This coworker is always going to be annoying. They're always going to hyperfixate on my work. I can't control that. All I can control is how I show up. That may be something that you are observing at this time. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the 7th house, this message is for you. A lot of you are Pisces risings. Many of you may just have 12 degrees Virgo in the 7th house, in Placidus house system or some other house system. But wherever it is that you fall in any of those categories, this is a major eclipse for you. This is a big story that is showing up as well as has shown up with North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo overall. Because since late 2024, early 2025, the nodes have been activating the 1st house of self and the 7th house of other. During this time is that you've been asked to choose yourself in a way that you may have never chosen yourself before. It may have felt very foreign to prioritize your own interests, to prioritize your own preferences, to go after what it is that you want and desire, what it is that you want to experience out of this life. Some of you could have chosen to be visible. Some of you could have felt like you found yourself. And maybe, yes, it's been you discovering yourself, but maybe it's been you creating yourself. You've been like saying yes to life. You've been saying yes to yourself, and you've been really following your intuition to guide that path. And you've been recognizing which connections support the blossoming and the blooming of all that you are, and which challenge it. You know, I'm of the belief that people who are truly for us and for our highest and best good will always celebrate our growth. Because, to be forthright with you, you know, a lot of you are Pisces risings, and a lot of the events from late 2024, early 2025 could have led you feeling like a fish out of water, trying new things, experimenting with new ways of being, putting yourself out there, being visible. For some of you, being solo, going at something alone could have made you feel very uncomfortable. And the right partnerships for you. And 7th house is beyond just romantic entanglements. It's any sort of one-on-one connection. The right connections will celebrate you becoming all that you are and stepping into your soul's purpose. They will never deter you away from it. They will love for you to realize all that you are, all of the potential that you have within, all that spirit has designed you to be. The right individuals will celebrate you on that path. But some of you could have recognized that there may have been certain individuals who were threatened by your growth, threatened by your evolution, threatened by you trying new things and experimenting with new ways of being, thinking that you doing so was a threat to the connection itself. And sometimes a way that people try to control us when we're growing in ways that make them uncomfortable because of what it reflects to them about them. You know, always fun having Pisces placements and just being an eternal mirror for other people. But a way that people will strive to deter us from what it is that we are meant for or called towards is to criticize it, to criticize what they don't understand, to nitpick, to judge. And this may be coming from an interpersonal contact. This could have caused you to cut contact with somebody within your life. You could have released a relationship. This eclipse could be an acknowledgement that it's time to do so. Because this could be somebody who never learned the old adage. If you have nothing nice to say, better to say nothing at all. You could just feel like there's someone who's constantly complaining to you about you or critiquing you or nitpicking you and making you feel like you can never do anything right. And this could have led you to doubting yourself when it was time to do something new or do something for yourself or prioritize yourself around, what would so-and-so say? So-and-so is going to say what they always say. They're going to have something negative to say about it. My question for you, though, is why are you letting so-and-so dictate how it is that you show up? Other people are going to do what they're going to do. If someone's going to complain, they're going to complain. If someone's going to find something to judge you for, they will find something. And again, this could be speaking about one particular connection or some sort of imaginary compilation of any sort of critique that you found from other people. And then it just kind of like looms large as this shadowy figure around, oh, I couldn't possibly do this because what if someone says this? Or what if someone thinks this? What if? What's going to run your life? Is it going to be so-and-so? Is it going to be this figment of your imagination around what people could say? They'll probably say that. People who want to say something about you will find something to say. You cannot please everyone in this life and you'll burn yourself out trying. And especially at this particular moment in time, knowing that Saturn and Neptune have left Pisces, and for a lot of you have left your rising sign, have left your first house, you've recognized the weight that it takes of swallowing other people's perceptions and judgments and expectations of you. It's heavy. Why are you living for them? Live for yourself, and furthermore, live for who Spirit Source Energy designed you to be. And so some of you could have this recognition of that. And maybe it is someone that you cut contact with. Maybe it is someone that you have a breakup with. That is not the case for everyone. Some of you could just find different ways of compartmentalizing it, of dealing with it. Of course, that's what this person would say. And the sky's blue. Like, that's what that person's going to do. I can't control how other people show up. All I can control is how I show up. All I can control is to not let that person hold me back from what I desire. All I can control is how it is that I energetically entangle with this person. Maybe some of you have learned to gray rock, to not feed any emotional energy, to not get offended. Like sometimes, like I said, people in an effort to control us will criticize us, especially if we kind of play into it around, okay, I'll try to make it right. Or what if I do this? Like over accommodating energy. Some of you are sick of it. You're like, listen, you can think whatever you want. I'm not going to let this absorb into my being. Maybe I can interact with you in these circumstances and not in these. Or if you're going to critique, if you're going to give feedback, I get to choose whether or not I take that feedback. It's very important to not take critique from individuals who you would not take advice from. Like, do you want this person's life? Do you agree with how it is that they've lived their life? If no, don't feel like you need to absorb how they think you are living your life or how you should live your life. Like, you get to choose, really, it's your life. And some of you could be feeling the weight of a deviation of plans of some sort, where if you're in a relationship, if you're in a marriage, if you're in a business partnership, there may be something you're having to let go of at this time. I'm not necessarily saying the other person, maybe it is that, but it could be we had this certain plan. We're going to do things this way. We were on this timeline, but apparently that wasn't the universe's timeline, so I got to trust in that. If you do not have a partnership, but you want one, you desire one, there could be an energy of releasing the timeline of this person coming into your life or how you thought things were going to go or who this person was meant to be, like trusting, okay, universe, source energy, you know my desires, you know my heart, align me to what is truly meant for me and allow me to remember that the first step in having anyone that chooses me or anything that chooses me is for me to choose myself. Because ultimately, that's what North Node in Pisces has nudged you to do. And maybe some of you are releasing a notion that you need a partner to do something. It's like, I couldn't possibly travel because who would be my travel buddy? I couldn't possibly buy a house. Who am I going to buy it with? Like delaying your desires, waiting for someone to do it with you, build it with you, which of course it's beautiful to build something with another, but some of you could be releasing it around, I'm not putting my desires on hold anymore. I'm not putting myself on hold anymore, waiting for someone to show up. Because when we do that, sometimes we settle to a certain degree where it's like, I want to move forward within my life. And if I feel like I can't move forward until the right other person is here, then I will settle for the first person that's there because I want to travel. I want to buy a house. I want all these things. Saturn and Neptune in Aries is asking you to take your desires into your own hands hand, especially fiscal desires within the second house. Take your worthiness into your own hands with that in your second house, and to release feeling like you need another person to give you that, give you financial stability, give you value as a human being, give you self-worth. Only you can give that to you, and only you can give yourself what it is that you want out of this experience. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the 8th house of your astrological natal chart, you may be an Aquarius rising. You may just have 12 degrees Virgo in your 8th house. But you are on a journey, and this eclipse is kicking it off around letting go of your fears, letting go of shame, letting go of suppressed desires, letting go of neurosis that has been like looming large within your psyche. This is a time around letting go. You know, Virgo as an archetype is associated with guilt and shame because it is an archetype that's associated with perfection. And in this name of perfection, in this effort for perfection, we are constantly going to have to rectify with our own flaws and our own deficiencies. And with this in your 8th house, there could be certain neuroses or certain shame that you've been holding on to, that you've been pushing into the crevices of your own psyche, that you've been holding on to. And that could be driving some of your compulsions, some of your habits. You know, if you watch my weekly horoscope series, Magic Monday, you may recall my sharing this. But when I went to therapy, which I have since graduated from, it was a helpful period of my life. But in therapy, I learned that when we have shame about something, oftentimes, in an effort to relieve ourselves from the pain of that shame, we will go towards things that will then in turn create more shame. And it keeps us in a very addictive cycle. It keeps us in a loop. And we have like cognitive dissonance around, this is bad, it causes shame, yet I keep doing it. And it's because there's a desire for relief from the shame of it. For example, let's say we drink too much, we overconsume, and there's like a shame around being hungover and being fearful around that, and that makes us want to drink to avoid that shame, and then the cycle just repeats. I'm not literally saying it's drinking, it could be anything that we do. You know, Virgo is very associated with habits, and I just feel like there's a release of certain habits within your life that are driven by shame or driven by fear, and gaining awareness of it. You know, everybody has a different pathway. For me, therapy was super helpful just because learning about the brain, because a lot of times when you're in a loop like that, you're like, why do I keep doing this thing that I know is really bad for me? Why? It doesn't make sense, which gives us more shame and more guilt. Why am I this way? I hate myself. Like, that is not the loop that is going to drive you towards your best timeline, towards your most worthy timeline. You know, you've got North Node and Pisces in the second house. You are stepping into your full worthiness. You are falling in love with yourself. And with this energy in the 8th house, there can be certain things that you have blown out of proportion as it relates to your own deficiencies or your own inadequacies. And you've blown it out of proportion because you're running from it, you're numbing it, you're escaping it, you're doing things in order to cope with it rather than just facing it around, I feel inadequate here, I don't feel good enough here. Sometimes we make something a bigger thing because we don't want to face it, we don't want to acknowledge it, we don't want to do the shadow work, we don't want to have to rectify with our flaws. But the energy of North Node Pisces is finding the divinity in this experience. You know, Pisces is a sign as the opposite of Virgo that's also about perfection, but in a different way, where Pisces is about the perfection of the universe, like the perfection of this universal experience in all of its messiness, like finding the perfection of it around this moment is what it is. I am who I am. It's not to say that we can't grow and evolve and change, but it's doing so out of the framework of loving ourselves so much and wanting to follow our own soul's call and not wanting to lash out or be compulsive or obsessive in ways that keep us in the dark or keep our fears in the dark, keep our insecurities in the dark, to free ourselves, really. You know, when we talk about 8th house, we talk about fears, as I highlighted. We talk about the psyche. We talk about debt. We talk about where it is that we feel indebted. And those can all be something that's creating a lot of shame or guilt in your life. Like there could be an element or in your debt giving you a lot of anxiety. Maybe you have some sort of gambling affliction that has led you to being more so in debt, something like this. You know, I saw some sort of meme where it was like, you know, I don't need the government to forgive me for my loans. I forgive myself. You know, obviously there's a financial quality when we talk about the 8th house, but What's also important is remember the soul quality of it, where if there was a financial misstep, if you are in debt, like that does not make you a bad person, or it does not warrant you living in guilt or shame. Like just finding that element of forgiveness of yourself, or putting yourself in a certain position, or even just forgiveness of yourself around having certain habits or having made certain mistakes. Like I said, not wanting to reckon with our own failings or with our own demise or with our own judgment will sometimes drive us to the very thing that's causing all of this detrimental behavior or lashes out within our own experience. And so some of you could be releasing the shame associated, the guilt associated with it, around being able to just acknowledge, that was a rough time in my life. It does not define me. And there might be a organizing at this time around being able to differentiate, that was something hard that I went through that does not define me. And I'm even seeing some of you could have absorbed things that were never yours to absorb, like having something transpire where somebody crossed boundaries. Eighth house can be kind of like merged energy. And sometimes the shame of that, even if we did not do anything, can create, self-hatred, and that's not yours to take on whatsoever. And sometimes if we're not aware of that and we don't navigate the trauma or deal with it in some sort of way, we will lash out. We will do certain things either to self-destruct or, on the worst case scenario, even like inflict hurt to other individuals. And there's so much freedom that comes when we free something from the shadows, when we face something, when we acknowledge something. Not easy, but this can really like set you free. Allow yourself to embody a very loving perspective of yourself. Like when we talk about North Node in the second house, where it likely is for you, this is around worthiness. This is around values, and really being able to view yourself like spirit, universe views you, as a soul who tries their best and has pure intentions, and sure has messed up sometimes, sure has flaws and deficiencies, but is trying and evolving and growing, and to make decisions that honor all that you are, and furthermore honor all that you will become, and to know that you're worthy of it. I saw something recently, sorry to keep quoting social media. I swear I haven't done this with anyone besides your reading. I don't know if it's because a lot of you are Aquarius risings, but there was a post that I saw that was talking about how your life is the main event. Like, you shouldn't just feel like you have to clean up because people are coming over, or wear certain things because you're seeing certain people. It's like you are worthy of it. And so there can be an energy around really seeing yourself as worthy and not letting shame or guilt run your life. And this isn't me saying you have to run out and spend a bunch of money. And it's like, I'm worth it. Like, you are. But it's beyond, bubble baths and chocolates and buying nice clothes. It's also saying no when something does not meet our standards. It's also loving ourselves enough to get out of bed and brush our teeth and wash off our makeup, even when we just want to go to sleep. It's loving ourselves to say no if we know that we're going to be in an environment that's going to be tempting for us. It's loving ourselves enough to take feedback without making us spiral. I will also say some of you can be releasing fears at this time, particularly fears around being judged, fears around being critiqued. There can be an energy kind of creeping into your psyche around worrying what people will say, which makes you feel ashamed. You could feel like you've had to hide certain parts of who you are. And this particular eclipse could be you releasing that as well. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the 9th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Capricorn ascendant. You may just have 12 degrees Virgo in the 9th house, in Placidus house system, another house system. But whichever category you fit into, there is an overarching story that is punctuated by this eclipse around letting go of grass is greener sort of mentality. Again, North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo has been a story that's been ongoing since late 2024, early 2025. And this journey overall has been about you acquiring spiritual knowledge, like researching, acquiring information, maybe even communicating on certain spiritual topics. This could have been a journey around having more compassionate self-talk for yourself and others, as well as just falling in love with your surroundings, falling in love with your own backyard, falling in love again and again. Could be an energy here, because 9th house across from the 3rd house. 3rd house is our own backyard. 9th house is faraway lands. It is distant places. And to a more archetypal level, it can represent these kind of big, grandiose symbols of growth. right? Around, I will know I'm moving forward because my life looks like this. I will know that I'm doing good enough when this happens, or when I'm traveling abroad, or whatever it may be, the certain metrics of not just success, but like a life worth living. Feel like it needs to show up in these very big ways, or maybe even having a plan around how your life was going to be. And it just feels like there is a surrender at this time around letting go of what you thought it was going to be in order to embrace what it is, as well as fall in love with this particular environment, this particular place. You know, there can be things that can be learned here. You might kind of resist against the flow of where your life is going, or even just the magic, the majesty of the present moment in this effort around, it should be this. It should look like this. I should be here already. I should have graduated with my master's. I should be traveling abroad, or whatever it is. And while it is that we can desire more and crave more and move towards more, that doesn't mean that where we are is not valid or not valuable or not beautiful. You know, even with its imperfections, that's the energy of North Node Pisces, is around, you know, there's things within this particular moment that could be better, but that doesn't make it not beautiful and majestic in its own way. And there's things to learn from it. You know, sometimes when we feel like my life will finally start when I move away, my life will finally start when I graduate, my life will finally start when it looks like A, B, and C, we miss out on what life is trying to teach us right now. Because where the North Node and South Node is concentrated for you is a lot about learning. And third house is learning that's more so around in our own backyard. It's certifications. Ninth house is more so around degrees and faraway lands. Both are valuable here in life school, but there can be an energy around resisting the current lessons that the universe is showing you because you feel like you need to be doing something else, or being somewhere else, or being someone else, or things need to be different. Sometimes you got to fall in love with how things are, relax into the flow, absorb all of the study material, all of the information of where it is that you are right here, right now. The next moment will come as it's meant to. You know, sometimes we feel like we need to like resist against the currents of our current reality if we don't like exactly where it is. But sometimes there's lessons for us to learn within it. And there may be a time that you do miss this particular period of time when you are graduated, or when you are traveling abroad, or doing whatever it is that you want to do in these kind of big picture ninth housey ways. Sometimes we miss the little things. We wish we would have been more present for the class. We wish we would have been more present for spending time with our neighbor. We wish we would have been more present with the simplicity of what our lives looked like at that particular time. Like, what would it look like to trust in the universe and trust in the plan, and not feel like you are doing life wrong or living life wrong because you're not where you thought you were going to be. You know, the universe has a plan, and it's more divine and more beautiful than ours a lot of times. And so some of you could be reckoning with that. Maybe you didn't get into a program that you thought you were going to get into, or you wanted to graduate on an accelerated track and it seems like that's not the case, or you didn't get placed in the professor's class that you wanted. Like, you can fight, you can scream, you can yell, but at a certain point you got to accept and surrender and trust. You know, there's got to be a reason for it. I may not see it at this particular moment, but there's got to be a reason. And it can be so freeing to live life like that, not through the lens of complacency or stagnancy around why bother try because it's in the universe's hands. But if there are things that are unchangeable within our life around, try as I might, I will not be able to get into this professor's class or force my way into this particular program. When there's things that are unchangeable within our life, you know, all we can change is our own perspective and attitude and mindset towards it. Adopting a spiritual perspective on it can be very soothing. Around, you know, I didn't get the class that I thought that I wanted. There must be a reason the universe wanted me to be in this one. Maybe I'm going to meet my soulmate. Maybe this is going to happen. Maybe I'm going to learn something here. Like, you never know how the universe is setting you up. And so this is a time to relax into the flow of it, which is uncomfortable. You know, a lot of you are Capricorn risings. This is an Earth lunar eclipse. Like, Earth energy is very grounded. It's very solid. It's very hardworking. It's, if I want something, I make it happen. And this kind of like esoteric mindset around everything happens for a reason may feel a little foreign or unfamiliar or uncomfortable for you, but it's soothing for the mind. It honestly creates more peace when we accept and surrender and decide that we're going to see the beauty in what is transpiring and make the best of what's transpiring, rather than feeling like things are going wrong and things are not going according to plan. Trust that everything is unfolding as it's meant to. And that might be uncomfortable, and that may be very much the story of North Node and Pisces, South Node and Virgo overall for you. And we can always romanticize what we don't have or feel like my life will start as soon as I achieve this, as soon as I do this. With North Node in Pisces, find the meaning around you, find the lessons around you, find the beauty around you, truly. And some of you are letting go of being a know-it-all. I always think of that with Virgo in the 9th house. I'm not calling you a know-it-all, but if there's an energy around not wanting to seem dumb or incompetent, so much so that you get in the way of learning, this could be a time around acknowledging, I don't know it all, and I'm open to learn. Because a lot of times we work it into our own persona, into our own self-concept, that we always need to know what we're doing and knowing what's going on. We feel uncomfortable anyone seeing us when we don't have it all figured out. But oftentimes that backfires on us. Like oftentimes being a little vulnerable around it, I don't really know the answer to that, or I don't really know what I'm going to do next. Like sometimes that creates the environment for the universe to pair you with the right insight, with the right wisdom from the right people to come into your orbit. If you aren't sure what you're going to do next year, but you talk to your friend about it and you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to do A, B, and C, you lose out on the opportunity of your friend saying, hey, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about this? Again, your life is your own to live by, but sometimes other people are conduits for messages. And we don't get that when we go through life like, I know it all. I know exactly what I'm doing. You don't. No one really does. And that's okay. Like this could be an energy around releasing an energy that you need to know it all. And if you are in some sort of profession, you're in academia, you're in spirituality, sometimes there is a feeling that you need to know it all. But what I learned early in my astrological study, particularly when I was training to become an astrologer, and this was some of the best advice I've ever received, if you do not know something, say you don't know. It is so much more detrimental to try to fumble or make up some sort of answer. Nobody knows everything, and no one's going to look to you even as a source of guidance and wisdom as someone who is all knowing. We all have different specialties. We all have different things. And sometimes the wisest thing you can say is, I don't know the answer to that question. And sometimes in acknowledging that, then you can research and learn the answer and transmit it. Like nobody knows it all. So release holding yourself to that standard can also be a nudge here. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands in the 10th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. A lot of you are Sagittarius risings. A lot of you just have 12 degrees Virgo in the 10th house using Placidus house system or some other house system. But all of you are united around letting go of giving a damn. And what I mean by this is that this is the most public house of the chart. And this is a full moon on the South Node. You are letting go of how you are perceived. You are no longer giving a damn. What's unique about this particular eclipse, outside of the ongoing eclipses of North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, is that this is the first eclipse that we will experience with Saturn and Neptune now officially in Aries. And the reason I'm noting that is because collectively we're kind of going to this era around not giving a damn as much, fellow fire sign, a lot of your Sagittarius risings, because truly you can't go through life worrying around what other people think or what other people assume about you or what people think you could be doing differently. You will dilute all of your power living through life like that. And at the end of the day, you have to follow what's right for you. You have to make the decisions of what's right for you. You have to live with yourself day in and day out. People won't understand what it is that you're pulled towards, what it is that you're called towards. And the great thing is they don't have to. With North Node going into your 4th house currently, you may be making certain decisions that have other people puzzled. They may not understand why you're not going for that promotion. They may not understand why you're moving to be closer to family. They may not understand why you're saying no more often. You're really prioritizing your peace. And part of peace is acceptance. And what I feel that you're really accepting is that people who are devoted to misunderstanding you will always find a way to misunderstand you. People who are devoted to judging you will always find a way to judge you. People who are devoted to criticizing you will always find a way to do so. And you can't live for them. You have to live for you. And furthermore, you have to live for your spirit, your soul with North Node in Pisces. Because 10th house, where this eclipse is reputation. And so you could feel like there's a lot of chatter around people who have a lot to say about you. A lot to say about what you're doing. And that is going to be eternal. And honestly, it actually is a metric of success, truly. Like you have to start to see it that way or quantify it that way. Virgo energy brings up a lot around how we categorize and organize things. And you have to see feedback that's coming in as a good thing. That means people are talking. That means it's generating buzz. That means it's generating conversation. And yes, some of the comments might be favorable. Some of them might be unfavorable. Some of them are worthy of taking to heart. Some of them are not. And you've got to divide that. But a lot of times, just because people are talking about you or saying, oh, they're so this, they're so cringe, they're so whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's A, the truth, and B, something that is a bad thing. What would it look to quantify that in a different way around that's not something for me to absorb? All I did was try and show up and create and do my best. And I don't have to feel embarrassed of that or ashamed of that or feel like I have to hide for that. At least people are talking. And you have to train your brain for that around not taking criticism to heart, especially if it's not worthy criticism to take to heart. Because some of you might be like, Haley Comet, I'm not in the public eye. I don't know if they're talking. I don't know if they're talking about me. This could also be a boss, like a boss who never has anything good to say about your work, who always micromanages, who always nitpicks. If you're self-employed, this could be like certain reviews or things like that. And of course, there is a healthy weight we need to place on customers, on our bosses, right? As it relates to the career elements of the 10th house. But not all criticism that comes in is criticism that needs to be absorbed and internalized by you. You need to have buckets around. That's just what my boss says, and that's critique. That does not need to be absorbed in who I am and my truth and my spiritual truth with North Node and Pisces in the 4th house. I don't need to bring that home with me. I can quantify that and organize that to that is a work thing. You know, this is feedback that my customers are giving me. I want to take that into work. That does not mean they hate me and I'm horrible and I'm bad and my creation is a flop. That just means I need to work on the packaging for my next candle or whatever it may be. You've got to learn how to divvy it up. And if you are in the public eye, because this does bring up like reputation, what is said about you, you know, not every comment that someone leaves or input that someone gives holds equal weight. You know, my mentor would always say, do not take criticism from someone you would not take advice from. You know, be very mindful where it is that you absorb criticism or where it is that you live to please. You know, people are always going to be mad. People are always going to feel like you should be doing something differently. So at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you and let them be puzzled. You know, a lot of people will say, you should do this, or why don't you do this? But at the end of the day, you can only do what's right for you. And people may not understand that, and that's okay. You have to follow what feels right, what feels aligned, because it's the only way we're able to cultivate peace at night and to sleep at night is if we do what's best for us. Because if you try to please all of the customers all of the time, if you try to meet all of your boss's demands all of the time, especially if they're outrageous demands, ultimately you're going to come up short. And it's not to say we shouldn't strive to do our best and integrate feedback, but at the end of the day, if you are seeing yourself in the lens of what you do, you will constantly feel like you're coming up short. You will constantly feel like you are tuning out your own intuition, trying to be good enough and perfect enough, when that is a myth. It'll keep you running on a hamster wheel that I feel for a lot of you, you're opting out of. You're recognizing you're in a hamster wheel at work, in your career, and you're taking a pause. I don't know if you're literally taking a pause from your work, or there can be some sort of disruption with work. Maybe you are letting go of a certain position. Maybe you are letting go of a certain plan that you had for your career, but there just could be an energy around, I don't want to just burn up all my energy day to day trying to be perfect enough and good enough. I want to move towards things that are meaningful and things that have soul and really carry weight for me, even if that doesn't make sense. You know, some of you, like I said, there could be certain talk around, why are you not taking that promotion? Or why are you not going in this direction? It's like, I don't know. It doesn't feel right. And right now I'm really having to trust what feels right. And I'm having to let go of what I thought it was going to be. You know, Virgo has a lot to do with planning. So your career could look totally different than how you thought it was going to be. There could have been certain revelations that you didn't see until you got there. You could just recognize, like, I worked so hard for this. And of course, there can be parts of this particular eclipse that can feel very intense, but there is asked to release how you thought it was going to be in order to brace how it was. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the 11th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Scorpio rising, or you may just have 12 degrees Virgo located within the 11th house of your astrological natal chart. But either way, you are releasing this energy around caring about tomorrow at the expense of today. And what I mean by that, so currently North Node is in Pisces, which is in your 5th house, which is around creativity and joy and bliss and the present moment. and falling in love with the divinity within the present moment, or falling in love with the divinity within the creative process. And sometimes what gets in the way of that is worrying about tomorrow. If it's creativity, for example, will this novel sell? If it's love, another fifth house affair, will this be a person I go the distance with? Or even if it's just a joyful moment of your life, just wondering when's something going to come and mess it up. Something always comes and messes it up, like fear of the future, poisoning the current moment. And some of you, I just want to start there, could be experiencing that, where maybe things have been relatively good for you. It's been going well. And maybe there's an energy around, I just know the shoe's going to drop, something crazy is going to happen, something bad's going to happen. Like, what would it look like for me to just relish and appreciate this particular moment without fearing when it's all going to be messed up? Because a lot of you are Scorpio risings. You're very resilient. You've lived through a lot. And when you do that, a lot of times for self-preservation, it's like, well, it's going to be messed up eventually. They're going to see your true colors eventually. It's going to be poisoned eventually. They're going to betray you eventually. And it like tries to prepare you for the pain. But what it does is it just poisons the present moment. It keeps you from fully enjoying it because you're just waiting for things to go wrong. And sometimes that leads us to self-sabotage. And then we do end up poisoning the present moment because of our looming fears and anxieties around the future and what this could mean. So I see a lot of you are releasing this hold that the future has on you, particularly in poisoning how it is that you navigate day to day. And you're also being asked at this time to release a certain plan that you had for your future. And parts of that may feel a little crushing around, I thought things were going to look like this. I thought I would be able to reach this goal at this particular time. And eclipses do tend to be emotional, especially lunar eclipses, but there is an ask to surrender into this particular moment. You know, you could feel like your life will start as soon as you hit this goal or as soon as this happens within your life. But North Node in Pisces in the fifth house is trusting the divine's plan and trusting that you are here in this present moment in time for a reason. Trusting that sometimes certain love affairs that we have, you know, sometimes there's a reason that we have them, even if they're not our forever. Sometimes it's gold as it relates to our soul's journey, or they're a muse, or they inspire us, or sometimes we work on a certain creative project and it's not something we need to be known for, but it's something that keeps the essence of creativity alive within our world. Like when we feel like for something to have value, it needs to be forever, or it needs to contribute to the big picture of my life, or the vision that I think my life needs to take, we take away from the divine's plan and the detours that it has for us. And some of you, I will be forthright, can be experiencing some sort of friendship breakup, either at this time or it could have been alive during the eclipses altogether. There could have been a certain friend where it's like, this was not the plan. We were supposed to be besties forever. This was not how things were meant to go. But if true colors are revealed, you have to trust that. If there's a deviation in what we thought things were going to be and how they are, we have to go with the flow of that. And if it's not an all-out friendship breakup, there just could be this energy around competitive energy, or feeling like you need to measure up with certain friends. Like maybe there's certain friends of yours who are reaching certain milestones, they're hitting certain goals. And you can look at that and feel the scarcity in that around, oh, it's happening for them. Does that mean it's not going to happen for me? We can feel the excitement around that, around this is happening for people around me, and that means it can happen for me as well. Or even just like feeling into the excitement of this milestone transpiring for a friend. When you get into that vibration, honestly and genuinely, you can attract that energy into your life as well, like relishing in other people's success or other people's happiness. It does not need to be an either or a zero-sum game here that somebody else's win means your loss. And so some of you could be releasing comparing yourself to others, especially if you are in a season where it seems like other people are hitting their goals, they're doing all of these big things, and you're looking at your life and you feel like it doesn't measure up. You know, North Node Pisces in the fifth house. Judge your life by how in love with each moment you are. Judge your life by how often you feel inspired to create. Judge your life by how much fun you're having. You know, there could be an energy around feeling like people around you, age dependent, of course, based on who's listening, but you could feel like all of a sudden people are doing all of these like adult things, like they're hitting all these milestones, and you're like, I still feel like a teenager on the inside. I still feel really young. Like I feel like I'm not measuring up. You define you. You define your life. And the best way to get off track of our soul's journey is to compare it to other people. Like, we all have a different path. Somebody else's big picture is not your big picture. And the more that you try to force it to looking like that, being like that, the more that you detract from where spirit and soul is nudging you, because we feel our way into alignment. We don't think our way into it. And especially if you're looking on social media or looking at other people in your network or your audience and seeing what other people are doing and thinking, I should be doing something differently. Feel, where is your joy taking you? You know, Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. That's so alive for you right now with North Node in Pisces. You've got to feel your way there. And it's not a roadmap. It's not based on what other people are doing. It can only be felt by you. And so letting go of caring about what other people do, again, congratulate them, celebrate them, but don't let it lead to competitive energy, jealous energy. Get excited for what it is that they've created and get even more excited for what it is that you are actively creating. And knowing that your journey might have some deviations. This is not how you thought that things were going to go. Things took a turn. Things are different than how you imagined. How is it that you can relax in the flow of how things are and let go of the anxiety around, I should be here already, it should look like this. All of that panic and anxiety is just going to create mental noise. This is a time to be still and just allow your life to be. You know, allow yourself to fall in love with this present moment. Even if it's not ideal, even if it's not in accordance to your timeline or the milestones, there's a particular magic in this particular moment. Find it, savor it. If the Virgo lunar eclipse lands within the 12th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You might be a Libra rising. You might just have 12 degrees of Virgo tucked away in the 12th house. But if this eclipse is lighting up this sector, you are sweeping out the psychological and subconscious clutter. It's cleanup on aisle U when it comes to a lunar eclipse in the 12th house. And what's tricky about this house is that it is hidden. And what's fascinating is that it's right next to the first house, which is very visible. And oftentimes what is very private to us is very visible. You know, people can feel when there's a cognitive dissonance within us, when we are portraying ourselves one way, when we're not fully that. You know, there is a focus at this time with Saturn and Neptune now in Aries around authenticity, and people can feel it when it's not in alignment. Like, they can feel it in our energy, like kind of our aura tells on us. And we're not always aware of that. And again, this is not me saying that you've been inauthentic or that there is a dissonance. It's just a time in which you can recognize that certain judgments that you have of yourself may be kind of infiltrating and affecting your aura. You know, if you're very judgmental and critical of yourself, oftentimes that is an energy that kind of emanates from us. And sometimes we externalize our own self-judgment by critiquing and judging other people, because there's something within that that makes us feel safe around, okay, look, everybody has flaws. But then that just kind of like puts this dominant signature within our energetic field of critique, whether it's of self, of others. And sometimes that can be essentially off-putting, or some people can like kind of feel the dissonance within that. Again, it's not saying that we need to live our life based on the aura that we're giving off, but there just could be an energy around really getting real with yourself around the stories that are existing within and how they could be showing up. Because outside of like the aura, the energetic signature that people perceive of you, this is also the house that is right next to the angle of how you view the world. So it also indicates your lens. So again, if we are not conscious of our own fears, of our own stuff, of our own hangups, of our own psychological loops, that will impact how it is that we see the world, what we see. You know, our mind takes in so much stimuli every single day. And because of that, it filters it out for what is relevant to us. So if we hold a thought to be true, to be dominant within our mind, we look for more proof of that being true. So if we are holding certain thoughts within ourselves, even if we're not conscious, a certain self-concept or a certain way of seeing ourselves, we will look for more proof that that is the case. We will ignore all of the nice things people say and hyperfixate on the mean thing someone says, because it validates a fear that we have of ourselves deep down. Or even certain things about the world at large. If you feel like the world is a cruel place, you will see more data that supports that. If you feel that the world is a very magical place, you will see more data that supports that. And so it's really important to get to the core of those underlying stories, because those can be really stealing the show to a certain extent, or really impacting what we see Isn't that interesting? There's so much that our mind just like filters out as not being relevant because it does not align with our inner stories that we deem to be true. And so this particular lunar eclipse could be you kind of sweeping that around, particularly as it relates to like internalized criticism that was never yours to internalize. Let's say if you had someone within your life who would constantly say, you're so this and you're so this, and then you've absorbed that critical mind state. You could have absorbed perfectionism, seeing yourself as perpetually not good enough because you hyperfixate on your flaws. There also could be certain self-destructive habits that you are recognizing that are running rampant within your life. This desire for perfection, this desire for control really is Virgo energy. And you could be striving for control in ways that are ultimately detrimental, destructive to yourself at this time. And sometimes holding on with deep control gets in the way of intuition. You know, this is an eclipse in a very intuitive house, the 12th house. And intuition cannot be controlled. Intuition cannot always be organized. It can not always necessarily come on and off like a light switch, you know, what Virgo would want. And so some of you could be really releasing control or the destructive matters that you go to in order to have control. Even if that's numbing, escaping, something like this in order to have control by not facing something, escaping, running from it. North Node in 6th house is asking you to take steps in order to rectify what is bothering you rather than numbing it, hiding from it. And you know, it's interesting because sometimes when I'm filming, certain things happen when I'm filming that are some ways reflective of the message. And something that's been unique with your reading is that there have been so many noise disruptions. There's been a car alarm, there's an airplane right now, there's been sirens, there's all of this noise. And it's interesting because 12th house is around stillness. It is a house around silence. And that may not be something that feels like it's being afforded to you right now. You may feel like your life is very busy with North Node in the 6th house, Sun in the 6th house. There can be a need for quiet at this particular time or a respite from day-to-day life in order to tune into your own intuition, to hear your own soul speak. But also, sometimes we're very uncomfortable with stillness. Sometimes we're very uncomfortable with silence because we don't want to face certain things. We don't want certain thoughts to come to the surface. And so we run. We keep our schedules super busy. We never have a free hour. If we are free, we always have something playing in the background. We have our life set up so that we're constantly being disturbed or disrupted, what have you. And there is a certain power in being able to sit with yourself as well as sitting with what comes to the surface. Because sometimes if we just acknowledge the thoughts that we've been running from without numbing, escaping, or turning to detrimental things in order to take them away, sometimes we're able to disempower them around that's what I've been running about. You know, fear of my own insecurities, fear of my own inadequacies. Let me take away the power that these sort of thoughts have loomed. Like, let me take away this critical person from my life and how their own rhetoric has replayed within my brain. And that's what I'm running from. Like, let me get quiet enough to hear what it is that I've been running from and really release the hold that that has from me. Could be a nudge here because stillness and silence, it's where we're able to meditate. It's when we're able to tune into our own intuition. And I feel for some of you, you're really doing work right now to differentiate what comes from anxiety and what comes from spirit, like what comes from intuition. And your body tells you a lot of times, like, especially if you're sharpening into a certain intuitive practice, you're tuning into your intuition, you're studying some sort of spiritual art. You know, of course, there's going to be negative messages, challenging messages, because spiritual arts reflect life, which is challenging and harsh and contains suffering. But it's important how messages land in the body. And especially if you're starting to trust yourself as an instrument of tapping into source energy to differentiate what's coming from anxiety and overthinking in worst case scenario versus what's a genuine message coming in, you could be kind of sorting that out and finding ways in order to ground your body in order to really tune in order to really hear. So my loves, this Virgo lunar eclipse is advancing the plot of what we have all been experiencing since late 2024, early 2025, around following our dharma, our purpose with North Node in Pisces, choosing compassion over critique for ourselves and for the world at large, choosing to go with the flow rather than being rigidly attached with the plan. This is what this nodal axis has been revealing to us, and it's going to test us with this particular eclipse with the ruler being Mercury retrograde, where things may feel like they're really not going according to plan. There may be all sorts of snafus. There may be all sorts of things that it's very tempting to critique ourselves for. It's very tempting to feel like everything is going wrong. But the real essence of this eclipse is that everything is is going right. No matter how wrong it feels like it's going, everything is going right. To a higher perspective, all is playing out as it should. How is it that we can trust what is unfolding? So my loves, thank you so much for joining me for your lunar eclipse in Virgo March 3rd, 2026 forecast. I would love to know, are these themes already alive within your world? Have you been feeling this influence build? Do you also have mutable placements within these degrees? And you're really curious what this eclipse is going to bring up? Please let me know within the comments. I want to remind you that my Instagram handle is at Haley Comet Astrology. My TikTok is the same. I would so love to connect with you over there. And if you found any value in this video, if you could like, comment, subscribe, share it to a friend, and a little nudge that you can give is just so appreciated by me. I'm so grateful to any little bit that you can give in order to support what I do here in my little cosmic corner of the internet, which, speaking of, if you like the vibes, come around more often. We do all signs forecasts here, as well as a weekly horoscope show called Magic Monday that you are so invited to join. Episodes go live every single Sunday. We talk about the astrology of the week ahead and, more importantly, how to make it more magical by aligning with the cosmos rather than forcing against it. But until we meet again, stay magical.